LoveLore Library. Chapter 308. Leave It to Melanie followed Pingjan into the Bentley, who lit up a cigarette and handed one to Lin Yi. Lin Yi waved his hand. I'm not addicted, I don't like smoking. Pingjan didn't mind as he passed it to Faubert casually. Uncle Chu's in some trouble. Pingjan didn't know why his old man wanted him to go look for Lin Yi, but he couldn't understand why Lin Yi would care about company matters other than protecting Meng Yao. Lin Yi didn't have any experience in this, did he? It's about the company, isn't it? Lin Yi didn't wait for Pingjan to finish, guessing that the only thing Pingjan was worried about right now was the company's business. Yes, it's about the company. Pingjan nodded, not hiding anything. He wasn't going to hide anything since he was looking for help. The second and third largest shareholders of the company have teamed up, and all the board members who are on good terms with them are on their side. They're planning to hold a board meeting to elect a new chairman. Pingjan nodded, not hiding anything. Lin Yi waved his hand. Uncle Chu, you don't have to go into the details. I don't know much about company operations, but there's one thing I want to know right now. Will these two be a threat to your position in the company? Yes, they've been in the company for years, and they have a certain amount of connections. Some of the board members are on good terms with them, and I'd lose for sure if they'd teamed up. Pingjan said. Lin Yi nodded, furrowing his eyebrows as he fell into deep thought. Pingjan didn't disturb Lin Yi, since he'd never come into contact with company matters before. He'd need some time to digest what he'd just heard. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi asked a strange question all of a sudden. The second and third largest shareholders you mentioned, what's their relationship like before? Before? Pingjan paused, a little angry. From what I've seen before, their relationship wasn't that good. You know that the three major shareholders of the company, myself included, have a certain amount of power in the board of directors. There's no such thing as someone fawning over someone else, so from what I've seen, their relationship has always been tense. But I don't know why, but at the board meeting on Sunday, the two of them actually teamed up. This is what caught me off guard. It turns out that the two of them have been colluding with each other. Ha! Lin Yi laughed. Uncle Chu, you're too involved. The person involved can't see clearly. Pingjan paused. Maybe they didn't collude with each other long ago, but only temporarily. Lin Yi shrugged and continued, of course, this is just my guess. There's definitely something fishy going on. I think there's definitely a secret that no one knows about. Pingjan nodded, you're right, but it doesn't matter when they started working together. What's more important is how do I deal with them working together? Ha! Why deal with them? Lin Yi smiled. Uncle Chu, haven't you thought about splitting them up, making them fight amongst themselves, or even inciting them to betray you? Lin Yi hadn't run a company before, but the most common way to deal with his enemies was to divide and destroy them, or to incite internal strife and let them kill each other first. Of course, instigating defection was also a good way. Oh. Pingjan paused. He'd been thinking about how to deal with Jin Gubang and Xia Guangbu's team. He'd never thought about splitting them up, inciting them to betray him, or inciting them to fight amongst themselves. Tell me about these two shareholders. Who's the leader? Lin Yi asked. Jin Gubang and Xia Guangbu are the two major shareholders. Jin Gubang's the one I've been trying to deal with. He's the reason why Yao Yao was attacked a couple of times. I was actually planning on using the theme park incident to cause trouble for Jin Gubang during the board meeting on Sunday, but Xia Guangbu jumped out of nowhere. With that, Pingjan explained the situation to Lin Yi. Old Xia doesn't speak much, nor does he fight for power. Who knew that he'd be working with Jin Gubang this time? Pingjan's introduction, Lin Yi had a better understanding of the two shareholders of the company. This Jin Gubang was the leader this time, and getting him to defect was basically impossible. This Xia Guangbo that Peng Zhan was talking about was the key to solving this problem. Just as Peng Zhan had said, Xia Guangbo's behavior was completely different from his usual self on Sunday. There had to be something fishy going on, so Lin Yi decided to start with this person. Alright, if that's the case, leave this to me, Uncle Chu. I'll take care of it. Lin Yi nodded. Where does Xia Guangbo live? Xia Guangbo. You're not planning on killing people and robbing them, are you? Peng Zhan paused as he looked at Lin Yi worriedly. Don't worry, I won't kill Xia Guangbo. Lin Yi gave Peng Zhan a reassuring smile. Killing him is the only way to solve the problem once and for all, but according to what you said earlier, I'd rather kill Jin Gubang than Xia Guangbo. Since I've set my sights on Xia Guangbo, I can't do something like that. Naturally, it wasn't that Lin Yi hadn't thought of killing Jin Gubang, but he didn't want to bring unnecessary trouble to Peng Zhan. Jin Gubang, no matter what, he was still the second largest shareholder of Peng Zhan Industries. The death of a small fry wouldn't be a big deal, but the death of a shareholder would definitely attract attention. Lin Yi still wanted to live a peaceful life in Songshan, so he didn't want to cause any trouble for now. That's good. Peng Zhan nodded. Xia Guangbo's house is in the Qianhua waterfront district, in the private villa area F. The 6th villa is his house. I understand, leave it to me. Lin Yi said. I'll go talk to him now. Be careful. Peng Zhan didn't know if he was doing the right thing by asking Lin Yi for help, but since the old man had said so, Peng Zhan had to give it a try. Xia Guangbo isn't a normal person either. He has a bodyguard of his own, a master. Also, Lin Yi narrowed his eyes as he looked at Faubert involuntarily. Lin Yi had mentioned a golden class master before, and Faubert's expression had been a little different back then. Could it be that his suspicions were correct? That Faubert was a master amongst masters? Chapter 309. Chapter 309, How did you get in? Lin Yi thought that it was quite possible. If Faubert really was Peng Zhan's bodyguard, then he had to be a physical practitioner, just like Wu Qintian. While he was a practitioner, he didn't have any qi in his body because he trained in physical arts. Lin Yi wouldn't be able to sense the qi in his body, nor would he be able to tell what level he was at. As a result, Faubert was a little mysterious in Lin Yi's eyes. Being able to stay by Peng Zhan's side for so many years meant that a kid like Wu Qintian couldn't be compared to Faubert. Just how strong was he? Lin Yi didn't think that Faubert wasn't only responsible for Peng Zhan's safety, but he also had to take care of Meng Yao and Yushu's safety when they went to school. Lin Yi didn't know if anyone had tried to harm Meng Yao or not, but judging from the fact that Meng Yao and Yushu were still alive, Faubert had to be pretty strong. Li Fu seemed to have sensed Lin Yi's gaze on his back. After a moment of silence, he spoke up. You're right, I'm Mr. Chu's guard. There's a master beside Mr. Xia who's no weaker than me, but I'm a physical practitioner now, and he's a spiritual practitioner. Now? Lin Yi's interest was piqued by Faubert's words. What did this now mean? He used to practice the inner qi method. But why didn't he feel anything at all? I'll be careful. Lin Yi didn't really mind. A master, huh? He was a master himself. With that, Lin Yi got out of the car and prepared to drive his van to Guangbo. There was no reason for Lin Yi to wait now that he knew what the problem was. Wait, Yi, your van isn't going to be discovered, is it? Peng Zhan asked as he looked at Lin Yi's van. Ha! Uncle Chu, what do you think I'm going to do? Lin Yi used the key to open the car door and prepared to get in. I'm going to talk to Xia Guangbo face to face. I'm not afraid of him recognizing me. I see. Peng Zhan nodded. Why don't you drive Yao Yao's car? The people living in that district are all rich. Your car might be stopped at the entrance of the district. Okay, then I will drive Little Shoes Beetle. Since I have the key, I don't need to bother Yao Yao anymore. Lin Yi nodded, locked his broken van and went to the garage to get the car. Qianhua Waterfront District was one of the most luxurious districts in Songshan. This place was known as the symbol of Songshan's nobility. Every household here had a duplex layout, and there were even independent villas. Basically, every household had a starting price of 10 million, and a villa could be sold for more than 30 million. The people who could live here were either wealthy or respectable. And this Lead River shore was known as Songshan's wealthy district. Although not all rich people lived here, those who lived here were definitely rich people. Pingzhan didn't buy a house here because his current place was even more luxurious than this. As the third largest shareholder of Pingzhan Industries, one of the top 500 companies in the country, it wasn't surprising that Guangbua had a villa here. Besides, this Lead River Shore project was developed by Pingzhan Industries. The management of Lead River Shore was very strict. Cars from outside were stopped at the entrance of the district. Only cars with a high enough grade would be let through, or cars with the district pass would be let through after it was confirmed that they were residents of the district. Lin Yi's Beetle wasn't too expensive, but people who could afford it usually didn't have the first car in their family. Lin Yi's Beetle was easily let through by the security guards. He didn't ask around for directions either, and drove around the area until he found Area F. It was actually quite easy to find the area, with all the bungalows and villas in the area. Lin Yi parked the car in front of the 6th villa and got out of the car. However, Lin Yi didn't press the doorbell. Instead, he stepped on the transformer box beside the villa and jumped up to the balcony on the 2nd floor. Although Guangbua lived in a luxurious villa, he wasn't a person who liked luxury. He lived here because of his identity as a shareholder. Sometimes, he couldn't afford to lose face. If he lived in a shabby place, his business partners would be worried about his capabilities. Guangbua didn't remarry after losing his wife in his middle age. He didn't have much desire for material things, and he wasn't interested in women either. So after his wife passed away, he didn't bring any random women back to live with him. Guangbua's biggest wish was that his son could take over his career and make a name for himself. However, he didn't expect that his son would get addicted to gambling and drugs. He sent his son overseas to study with good intentions so that he could come back and help him. Gambling wasn't a big deal. A little gambling was fun, and Guangbua would occasionally play a few rounds with his old friends. But drugs. That was a bottomless pit. No matter how much money one had, it would be sucked into it. This time, his son actually owed a foreign mafia 100 million. Although Guangbua was furious, he only had one son, and he couldn't just ignore it. Guangbua had just ended the call with his son. Seeing his son beaten up badly, Guangbua's heart ached. He wanted to rush to his son's side and save him. Guangbua. A voice sounded in front of Xia Guangbua. Xia Guangbua was startled. He subconsciously raised his head and saw a shocking scene. Who are you? Guangbua looked like he saw a ghost as he looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. He had ended the call with his son and was in a daze for a while. Then, there was another person in the room. The reason why Guangbua was surprised wasn't that Lin Yi had snuck into his room without a sound, but that Lin Yi had gotten in. When he was on the phone with his son, Guangbua purposely locked the door from the inside to prevent the housekeeper and bodyguards from hearing what he said. The room key was in his hands, so how did this person get in? More importantly, how did he get in? There were nannies and bodyguards downstairs, and it was impossible for him to enter without alerting them. If it was a normal visit, the nannies would have notified him, and if it was an abnormal intrusion, the bodyguards would have stopped him. But this person came in and stood in front of him, and he didn't even notice. Chapter 310. The bodyguard appears. Lin Yi pointed at the open window, not answering Guangbo's question. Can I ask you something? Why did you support Jin Gubang in the board meeting? Guangbo paused, understanding where Lin Yi was coming from. Pingzhan sent you. You can leave now. Go back and tell him that there's no room for discussion. You've been eating too many stupid pills, haven't you? Why would he send me here? I'm helping out of my own volition. Lin Yi curled his lips. Did this guy think he was some small fry? Asking him to pass on the message. Was he stupid? Pingzhan treated him pretty well, but Lin Yi had come to Songshan only because of his old man. Other than old Lin and his assassin master, there was no one else who could send Lin Yi to do anything. Then what do you do? Guangbo was a little surprised at Lin Yi's words. This guy didn't seem to be Pingzhan's follower at all. What did he do then? Lin Yi frowned impatiently. I'm Mingyao's bodyguard. Ah. Guangbo was taken aback. Mingyao's bodyguard was here for him. Wasn't he being a busybody? You're Mingyao's bodyguard. What are you doing here instead of protecting her? You don't believe me when I say you're retarded. Lin Yi glared at him like he was an idiot. Pingzhan's Mingyao's dad. Who's going to pay for my expenses if he loses his job? Lin Yi was just saying that to draw a line between him and Pingzhan. Pingzhan could push all the blame away if things got exposed. If word got out that Pingzhan threatened the shareholders, it wouldn't be good for his reputation. Guangbo was speechless. Were you the retarded one, or was I? Why was a bodyguard like you meddling in company business? Guangbo realized something all of a sudden. You're here for money, aren't you? Tell me, how much? It was no wonder that Guangbo thought of Lin Yi as a money grubber. Lin Yi's identity had nothing to do with the company's business. I say, why are you talking so much nonsense? Do you want to die? Lin Yi kicked the safe beside him, sending it flying. It landed in front of Guangbo with a bang, just 1 centimeter away from his toes. Guangbo was completely caught off guard. Cold sweat dripped down from his forehead. Was he still human? Was he really a bodyguard? How could he be so awesome? He could send a safe that weighed a few hundred pounds flying with just 1 kick. When he looked at the safe, Guangbo felt a chill down his spine. On the side of the safe, there was a big hole. He was kicked out by Lin Yi. This kind of vault safe was surrounded by thick iron plates. How could he kick a hole through it? It was already difficult for the thief to cut it open with a chainsaw, so how could he kick it? Of course, this was not the main problem. The main problem was that if the safe had flown any higher or further, he would have lost his life. I want you to stay away from Jin Gubang. Do you understand? Lin Yi didn't bother asking why the guy was helping Jin Gubang. As long as he was afraid of death, he'd better get as far away from Gubang as possible. Guangbo's face paled, but he didn't say anything. He couldn't answer Lin Yi. What would happen to his son if he stayed away from Jin Gubang? Guangbo was scared, but he couldn't lower his head. Tell me, how much money do I have to pay for you to let me go? Money? You think you're rich? Lin Yi said disdainfully as he walked over. Guangbo shrunk back subconsciously. Lin Yi, however, didn't do anything to Guangbo. He walked over to the safe that was dented by the kick and pulled hard. The door was pulled down by Lin Yi. Is there any money in this safe? Lin Yi flipped through the contents of the safe and found a bankbook. He opened it, but Lin Yi was disappointed. There was a lot of money in the bankbook, 40 million, but it had all been withdrawn a few days ago. There's only a few kwai left in your bankbook. How are you going to give me money? Guangbo remembered that he transferred all his savings to his son a couple of days ago. Where would he have the money to give to Lin Yi? TSK, looks like you're in need of money. Is that why you agreed to Jean Gubong's request? Lin Yi tossed the bankbook aside and continued flipping through the contents of the safe. He smiled when he took out a stack of documents. Pingzhan Industries shares? Alright, you can transfer them to me now. No. Guangbo abruptly sat up straight, a determined look on his face. That's impossible. Ha. Is that so? Lin Yi tossed the shares to the side. Do you want your life or the shares? However, at that moment, the door was kicked open and a man rushed in. As soon as the man rushed in, he shouted, Mr. Xie, are you all right? As soon as he asked the question, he saw Lin Yi and tensed up. He'd heard the loud noise coming from Guangbo's room, and felt that something was wrong. He'd rushed up to see Lin Yi, as if he was facing a powerful enemy. The man was around 30 years old, with an unprepossessing appearance. He was the type of person who'd be easily overlooked in a crowd. This type of person was perfect for a bodyguard. Guangbo let out a breath of relief when he saw the man walk in, a relaxed expression on his face. He knew how strong a bodyguard was, and although Lin Yi was strong, he wasn't a match for this man. Huang, kill him. Xie Guangbo ordered the man who just came in. This person who could threaten his life, Xie Guangbo would not let him live in this world. Otherwise, the bodyguard could protect him, but it was impossible for the bodyguard to be by his side 24/7, especially when Lin Yi could sneak into his room without a sound. If there was a first time, there would be a second time. Guangbo was afraid of this kind of ability. If Lin Yi attacked him without alerting him next time, it would be difficult for him to escape. However, as he shouted, he'd already flown up and threw a punch at Lin Yi. Who are you? Ha! Lin Yi smiled faintly as he raised his fist. He didn't move from his spot, as if he was welcoming someone. The man was stunned. He didn't expect Lin Yi to take his punch head-on. This made him feel incredulous, and he increased the strength of his fist. He was ready to kill Lin Yi with one punch. Chapter 311. More Than Life. Bang! A loud sound rang out, and Lin Yi didn't move an inch from where he stood. Huang, on the other hand, flew out in a straight line, landing on the wall in front of the room with another bang. The wall caved in, and the decorative picture frame fell to the ground, hitting Huang's head. Huang, however, was already unconscious, lying there motionless with a trail of black blood at the corner of his mouth. Lin Yi hadn't used his full strength, after all. An early-phase Golden Class Master wasn't worth it at all. Lin Yi had only reflected Huang's attack back at him. It was the same as punching himself. It wasn't enough to take Huang's life, but he'd have to stay in bed for a while. Lin Yi was here to negotiate with Guangbo, not to kill him. As for his bodyguard, Lin Yi wouldn't kill him. You. Just who are you? Guangbo didn't expect his bodyguard to die before Lin Yi could even finish one move. Of course, he didn't know that Huang was still alive. As far as he was concerned, Huang hadn't moved at all after flying out. What else could it be other than dead? I told you, I'm Mingyao's bodyguard, or maybe I'm not her bodyguard. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Lin Yi shrugged. But now, can you sign the shares transfer agreement with me? I don't want to kill anyone, so don't force me. Guangbo was a little dispirited. Huang was his only hope, and he knew how strong he was. He was a legendary Golden Class Master. If Huang hadn't owed him a favor back then, a master of that level wouldn't have come to protect him. But a master of that level had been killed by Lin Yi. This shocked and terrified Guangbo. I can't transfer the shares to you. Guangbo shook his head. Absolutely not. So you want to die? Lin Yi was a little annoyed. There were people who cared about money more than their lives. This was the first time. This guy was obviously scared out of his wits, but when it came to shares, he refused to budge. I don't want to. Guangbo shook his head, his eyes flashing with determination. I can't give you the shares, even if I die. Lin Yi really didn't know what to say. He really wanted to slap this guy in front of him to death. Lin Yi picked up the door plank of the safe. He wanted to give Guangbo another shock. He wanted to bend the plank to scare him, but Guangbo misunderstood. He thought that Lin Yi had lost his patience and was about to kill him. Guangbo suddenly said, "Wait. Don't kill me. I can give you the shares, but you have to wait for a few days." How many days? Lin Yi was taken aback. At least after Jin Gubang becomes the chairman of the company, I'll give all my shares to you. Xia Guangbo said, even if I go to jail, it doesn't matter. You can kill me and I'll give you the shares, but I can't do it now. Guangbo's words confused Lin Yi. He had to wait for Jin Gubang to become the chairman before giving him the shares. He could even kill him afterwards. Was there such a ridiculous thing in the world? Was this Jin Gubang his father or grandfather? Was he really worth doing this for? What did Jin Gubang give you? Lin Yi frowned. My son, he's studying abroad, but he got addicted to gambling and drugs. He owes the local mafia 100 million, and they've got him under their control. They'll kill him if I don't give them the money. Guangbo knew that if he didn't explain things to Lin Yi wouldn't let him go. He might even kill him in a fit of rage. Oh. You're saying that Jin Gubang paid for your son's debt? Lin Yi frowned, so that was the reason. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. What a pitiful parent. In order to save his son, Xia Guangbo would rather die than to transfer his shares to him. But in order to save his son, he could give up his shares and life. No, he doesn't have that much liquid cash, and neither do I, Guangbo smiled bitterly. My son owes them US dollars. The 40 million I have in my bank account is just a drop in the bucket. But Jin Gubang has promised me that he'll let me use the company's funds after he becomes the chairman. Fuck. Lin Yi really wanted to curse. This Jin Gubang was quite mean, agreeing to something like that. It seemed like he was willing to do anything to become the chairman, sacrificing the company's profits for this position. Where's your son? I'll bring him back, and you'll give me the shares. Lin Yi didn't use a questioning tone at the end, but a commanding tone instead. It was an unquestionable order. Guangbo blinked. What, you don't believe in my strength? Lin Yi narrowed his eyes at Guangbo. No, of course not. Guangbo quickly shook his head. What a joke. How could he dare doubt Lin Yi's strength now? Even Ah Huang was beaten to a point where he didn't even know if he was dead or alive. Strength like that was rare in this world. But, as strong as he was up against a foreign mafia. Could he really bring his son back? Do you really think your son will come back safe and sound after giving them money? Lin Yi looked at Guangbo mockingly. Why don't you use your brain and think about it? Do you think they'll let a money tree like this go? Drug and gambling addictions are the hardest to kick. As long as he's still alive, you'll just have to prepare more money next time. Guangbo didn't deny it, he agreed with Lin Yi's words in his heart. This wasn't the first time his son had asked for money, but there were all sorts of reasons he'd come up with before, but none of them had asked for as much as this time. He'd offended some powerful people, he wanted to buy a car, his girlfriend ran away with someone. Guangbo told his son to come back as soon as possible after giving him the money, but his son didn't seem to listen at all. Now that he thought about it, Lin Yi was probably telling the truth. His son was using the money to pay off his debt and loan sharks. I'll give you 1 second to think. Do you want to die now, or do you want to bring your son back and give me the shares? Lin Yi looked at Guangbo as he slowly raised the safe. All right, 1 second's up. wait. Guangbo quickly waved his hand. I agree. Chapter 312. Yao Yao's complaint. Lin Yi looked at Guangbo and nodded, satisfied. He threw the safe down. Let's put off Jin Gubang, I'll get your son back in a week. Don't try anything funny, or you and your son. Lin Yi didn't finish his sentence, but Guangbo understood what he meant. Don't worry, as long as my son's fine, I'll cooperate with you no matter what. Guangbo had thought it through as well. Lin Yi really bringing his son back would be for the best. He'd have no shares and no money, but he'd be able to let his son live a hard life like a normal person. Without the money for drugs and gambling, his son might be able to walk the right path. I hope you'll do as you say. Lin Yi looked at Guangbo deeply, noticing that his eyes were clear. I'll fulfill your wish as well. Give me your son's information and send it to my voicemail. My phone number is 152x1234. I'll send it to you in a bit. May I ask? Huang. Guangbo asked carefully. He won't die, a golden class master like him only needs half a month to recover. Lin Yi said with a wave of his hand. Guangbo's heart skipped a beat. Lin Yi could see through Huang's strength so easily. What kind of strength did he have, then? But the stronger Lin Yi was, the happier Guangbo was. It was the only way Lin Yi could bring his son back from the mafia. Lin Yi didn't jump out the window this time. He walked out the front door with a swagger, disappearing from Guangbo's sight in the beetle. Beetle. Guangbo blinked. He glanced at the license plate and remembered that it was Yushu's, Mingyao's best friend's car. Was he really one of Mingyao's people? But Guangbo couldn't believe that a master like that would be Mingyao's bodyguard. How was that possible? Even Pingzhan's Faubert wasn't as strong as him, was he? Guangbo shook his head and stopped guessing Lin Yi's identity. There was no point in guessing. He just needed to follow Lin Yi's instructions. She called Nurse Wang in the servant's room and asked her to send a Huang back to his room. Since Lin Yi said that Huang was fine, it should be fine. When he entered the room, Huang was already awake. He opened his eyes with difficulty and looked at Guangbo. Mr. Xie, I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you, don't say any more. The other party was very powerful. Are you alright? Do you need to go to the hospital? Guangbo waved his hand. He couldn't blame Huang for being weaker than him. Huang had tried his best. No, I'll be fine after some rest. Huang shook his head. He's at least a late phase golden class. Mr. Xie, you're not hurt. No. Guangbo smiled bitterly. A late phase golden class was 2 levels higher than a Huang. Naturally, Huang wouldn't be a match for a master like that. Lin Yi drove back to the villa area only to find that Pingzhan's car was still there. Pingzhan wasn't in the car anymore, but Faubert was sitting quietly in the driver's seat. Where's Uncle Chu? Lin Yi asked after parking the car. In the villa. Mr. Chu told you to go find him when you got back. Faubert nodded to Lin Yi. Lin Yi entered the villa to see Pingzhan talking to Meng Yao on the sofa. Yushu was watching TV on the side as well. Meng Yao wasn't happy to see Lin Yi so late. Daddy, look at Lin Yi. He's always so late. You're the one who hired him 24 hours a day. How can he be so undisciplined? Meng Yao said as she looked at Lin Yi proudly. Let's see if you still dare to go out and flirt with other girls. My daddy's here now, you've caught him red-handed, haven't you? Let's see how you explain this. But, to Meng Yao's surprise, Pingzhan interrupted before Lin Yi could explain. Yao, Lin Yi went to do something for me, don't talk nonsense. Plus, Lin Yi takes care of your studies during the day and stays by your side at night. What kind of work discipline is that? Can't he have his own things to do? Daddy. Meng Yao wasn't expecting to be scolded instead of Lin Yi. She glared at Lin Yi with an unhappy face. This guy. How could he be protected by her daddy like this? If it weren't for the fact that she was her mother's only child, and that her father wasn't a playboy, she would have thought that Lin Yi was her father's bastard. All right, Yi, come with me for a bit. Yeah, let's go to your room. Ping Zhan didn't bother with his daughter. He'd been busy with company matters, and in order not to worry his daughter, he'd forced a smile on his face as he talked to her about her studies. Now that Lin Yi was back, Ping Zhan couldn't wait to know the results. Okay, Uncle Chu. Lin Yi nodded before entering his room with Ping Zhan. Ping Zhan was getting impatient the moment he closed the door. How did it go? What did Guangbo say? He won't be hanging out with Jean Gubang for the next couple of days, but I'll have to go overseas for a while. Lin Yi said. Abroad? What's going on? Ping Zhan was delighted to hear that Guangbo wouldn't be supporting Jean Gubang as long as Guangbo didn't interfere. Jean Gubang wouldn't be able to do anything on his own. Xie Guangbo's son owes the mafia a loan of $100 million. Lin Yi explained simply. Guangbo supported Jean Gubang as the new chairman because Jean Gubang agreed to let him use the company's funds to pay off his son's debt. So that's the reason. Ping Zhan said. Then you're going overseas, bringing his son back in exchange. Lin Yi said casually. But don't worry, Uncle Chu. It's only a 10-hour trip, and 2 days is more than enough. 2 days and you'll be able to bring him back. Ping Zhan blinked, but nodded at the thought of Lin Yi's efficiency and skills. Then I'll have to trouble you. Be careful, but I'll have to trouble Faubert for a few days. I'm afraid that Guangbo's sudden betrayal will drive Jean Gubang to the wall, and he might do something extreme. Lin Yi said. I'd have him disappear if I wasn't afraid of causing trouble for you. Chapter 313. Chapter 313, Small Matter. Ping Zhan's words warmed Lin Yi's hearts. It seemed that Ping Zhan wasn't treating him as a hired person, he was caring for someone younger than him. Ah. Uncle Chu, actually, this is really a small matter. Lin Yi felt very blessed right now, someone cared for him every day. Was this the life of a normal person? Small matter. This is a small matter. You're about to face a foreign mafia. Ping Zhan said seriously. They're different from the gangsters back in China, they're a bunch of desperados with guns and ammunitions. How am I supposed to answer to Elder Lin if something were to happen to you? Even my father wouldn't let me off the hook. Lin Yi didn't know how old Lin communicated with Ping Zhan, but it seemed like the old man didn't know what he'd done in the past. Not to mention a mafia leader, he'd even send private armies and mercenary leaders of smaller countries to their deaths. Uncle Chu, you'd know if you knew my old man. Actually, what I'm about to do is really a small matter. Lin Yi explained with a bitter smile. All right, I believe you. Ping Zhan nodded after hearing Lin Yi's words. You can just call Faubert and get him to take care of the plane ticket. I'll be going back first. Since Guangbo won't be on Jean Gubang's side anymore, I'll have to reconsider how to deal with Gubang. All right, take care, Uncle Chu. Lin Yi got up and walked Ping Zhan to the door. Ping Zhan waved his hand and left the villa after a few words with Meng Yao. It was getting late, and Meng Yao and Yushu locked the door and turned off the TV, yawning as they went upstairs to sleep. Lin Yi, on the other hand, sat in front of his computer and logged into his mailbox. As expected, Guangbo had already sent all the information on his son to Lin Yi. Xie Guangbo's son was Xie Jinbiao. He was 19 years old and was an international student. However, he was now brought to a remote town called Blue Town. It was a border town of a small country. Due to its geographical location, public security was very chaotic. The entire town was under the control of the local gangs. Xie Jinbiao was captured there. The Blue Water Gang didn't seem to be afraid of revealing their location to Guangbua because the city was completely under the mafia's control. They didn't think that Guangbua's influence would reach here at all. Even the other gangs nearby would give the Blue Water some face, and wouldn't trespass on their territory for no good reason. Of course, the Blue Water leader didn't think Guangbua had the ability to do so even if he did. Life or death was up to the Blue Water Gang's whims once they entered the city. The headquarters of the Blue Water Gang was located in the ancient Blue Castle of Blue City. The castle had a bit of history, and belonged to the owner of the city, a great family that had a glorious era. But that was a thing of the past, since the entire family had been wiped out after offending a powerful being a few decades ago. That was a very powerful family. In the past, the business and political power of the Little Blue City was completely controlled by this family. So when this family was destroyed, this place was in a state of chaos for a period of time. A few years later, Blue Town was taken over by the Blue Water, and order was restored. It was just a small gang, after all, and couldn't compare to a big family. The city's economy plummeted, and the Blue Water Gang had no choice but to use drugs and gambling to attract tourists. A strange smile appeared on Lin Yi's face as he looked at the information Guangbua had given him. Blue Town. Blue Castle. That name sounded familiar. His assassin master had said that he'd wiped out a trash family before, but Lin Yi couldn't remember if they lived in Blue Castle. Lin Yi called Faubert and asked him to book a plane ticket for tomorrow night. It wouldn't take more than 2 days, and it shouldn't affect his attendance at Kong Xiaobo's birthday party. Lin Yi got a call from Xuemin the next morning. The Lius had already gathered the money for the doctor's treatment, 100 million. They could transfer it over at any time. Lin Yi was amazed by this. Weren't the Lius a little too efficient? They had money so early in the morning. What they didn't know was that Elder Zhenhu was the pillar of the Lius. No matter how much money they had to protect him first. I understand, Grandpa Guan. I'll be there in a bit. Lin Yi said. Let them wait. Xuemin smiled and hung up the phone. He told Lu Tianyi about Lin Yi's intentions. However, Lu Tianyi wasn't angry at all. Everyone was like this, so what if he had to wait for a while? If Lin Yi heard that the money was ready and rushed over, Lu Tianyi would even suspect that Lin Yi was a scammer. Now that Lin Yi didn't seem to care, Lu Tianyi felt that it was normal. 100 million, if it was any other ordinary teenager, they might not know what to do. How big of a number was that? But Lin Yi had asked for 100 million straight away, as if he didn't care about it at all. Lu Tianyi felt that Lin Yi was very confident that he could cure his old man's illness. That was why he dared to ask for such a price. Lu Tianyi had Wu Huiru get ready to wake up the old man while he contacted his subordinates to prepare the money as soon as possible. It wouldn't be fun if Lin Yi turned around and left in a rage before the money was ready. Lin Yi put his phone down and went to the kitchen. He needed breakfast every day anyway, so he'd bring some for Meng Yao and Yushu along the way. Come to think of it, the girls were quite pitiful. Their parents were busy with work, and they didn't have anyone to take care of them. They were in their 12th year of high school, studying late into the night with severe lack of sleep. How was this the life of a miss? The two were smart, but there were too many smart people in the college entrance exam. In the end, it still depended on who had the most preparation. Being smart wasn't enough to get good grades. This was something Lin Yi admired. Even if they didn't take the college entrance exams, Pingzhan could have easily found a good university for them with his strength alone. Yet, they relied on their own hard work to get good grades. This was a fundamental difference from Zhong Pingliang, who only knew how to eat and wait for death. Chapter 314. Pinliang, depressed Lin Yi drove his old van to school, following Falbert's Bentley from afar. Actually, Falbert's skills were more than enough for him to handle emergencies. There weren't many people who would attack this bulletproof Bentley on the way to school. Lin Yi saw Tang Yun, Kong Xiaobo, and Lu Xinwen getting off the bus when they were almost at school. He didn't think that they would bump into each other in the morning. Lin Yi had heard that Kong Xiaobo and Tang Yun were going the same way, but Kong Xiaobo didn't know Kong Xiaobo before. Now, Kong Xiaobo could officially stand together with Tang Yun, his sister-in-law. Dee. Lin Yi pressed the horn twice. Xiaobo frowned as he turned around to see an old van. What the hell was an old van honking for? Plus, the road was wide, and there was nothing in the way. But, Tang Yun looked at the bun and found it familiar. She looked at the person in the driver's seat, and a smile appeared on her face. That smile made Lin Yi a little dazed, and he almost drove the car over. Fortunately, his reflexes were quick, or it would have been a tragedy. Is that boss? Kong Xiaobo saw that it was Lin Yi who was driving. He ran over with his backpack and jumped in. He called out to Tang Yun and Lu Xinwen, "You guys get in too." Tang Yun was a bit bashful. They were almost at school, why would they need to take a car? Wouldn't it be fine to just walk? Okay. Lu Xinwen replied and pulled Tang Yun into the van. "Boss, is this your car?" Kong Xiaobo looked at the broken van, speechless. This was completely different from the boss Lin he knew. You guessed it right. This is my car. Lin Yi handed the license to Kong Xiaobo. "I just got it yesterday." Kong Xiaobo looked at the license and saw that it was indeed Lin Yi's name. He was speechless. This car really belonged to Lin Yi. Was the Beetle really borrowed? "Boss, is this the car you mentioned yesterday?" Kong Xiaobo handed the license back to Lin Yi. "Yeah, I'm actually really poor, but I have a rich relative. It's already good enough that I can drive this car." Lin Yi smiled. Lin Yi's words touched Kong Xiaobo and Lu Xinwen. Lin Yi didn't seem to be the young master they were talking about. However, it was commendable for him to use all his money to pay for Xiaofen's medical fees. Tang Yun had long noticed that Lin Yi was different from others. She was curious about Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't look like a young master, but sometimes, Lin Yi was even more arrogant than those young masters. As for this car, Tang Yun was familiar with it. It seemed to be the car that was snatched from Heibao that night and Lin Yi took it for himself. Although Tang Yun didn't approve of this robbery, Heibao was too much. Being punished by Lin Yi with a car was already very light. Of course, Tang Yun didn't know that Heibao was still lying in the hospital's intensive care unit. The bones in his body were all broken. It would take at least half a year for him to recover. Lin Yi parked the car in the food street behind the school and the four entered the school together. The students of the school were already used to these four people who were often together. Even Wang Jifeng, the Dean of Academic Affairs, was not used to them and nodded at them. Dean Wang. Lin Yi suddenly remembered that he was going abroad and wanted to ask for a leave. "Oh. Lin Yi, what's the matter?" Wang Jifeng squeezed a smile on his face. He already had a shadow in his heart. Every time he had an affair with the female teacher, he couldn't help but think about it. Lin Yi knew about it, so when Lin Yi called him, he couldn't help but think about the affair with the female teacher. This was a strange circle, the cycle of cause and effect, repeated over and over again. However, Wang Jifeng was a bit afraid. This kid always did things that made him feel embarrassed. Would he find him for something? "Well, I might have something to do these 2 days. I need to ask for a few days of leave. Is that okay?" Lin Yi asked. "If that's the case, of course it's okay. Go do what you need to do, I'll tell your homeroom teacher. Wang Jifeng heard this and immediately calmed down. Jifeng calmed down after hearing that. It wasn't a big deal at all, and it wasn't the first time Lin Yi skipped class either. After Wang Jifeng left, Kong Xiaobo was a bit curious. Boss, you need to ask for a leave. What do you need to do? You won't miss my second grandpa's birthday this weekend, right? Tang Yun also widened her eyes and stared at Lin Yi. She also wanted to ask, but Kong Xiaobo asked first. Only Lu Xinwen wasn't interested. Whether Lin Yi went to school or not didn't have much to do with her. I was invited to treat a patient. Lin Yi naturally couldn't say that he was going abroad, so he said it with a lie. Treat? You know how to treat patients. Right. You know acupuncture. Lu Xinwen was a bit surprised, but she suddenly remembered what happened with Xiaofan and nodded. I'm just going to help, Lin Yi smiled. That's not bad. Kong Xiaobo gave a thumbs up in admiration. Boss, hurry up and improve your medical skills. It would be great if you can treat Xiaofan. I will work hard. Lin Yi nodded. Kong Xiaobo and Tang Yun knew that Lin Yi had some medical skills, so they didn't find it strange that Lin Yi went to see a patient. Last time, Lin Yi told Tang Yun that he had a way to treat Xiaofan's illness, but he couldn't do it now. So Tang Yun and Kong Xiaobo naturally thought that Lin Yi was talking about his medical skills not being enough. Tang Yun wanted to ask Lin Yi if he could take a look at her father's illness, but she remembered that Lin Yi couldn't do anything for Xiaofan, so she didn't ask. When they entered the class, Meng Yao and Yushu were already sitting on their seats. Lin Yi and Kong Xiaobo walked in, and the two raised their heads to look at Lin Yi before going back to their work. Pin Liang was depressed. He had said that he was going to write a letter of love to Meng Yao yesterday, but it ended because of the bloody mess. No one brought it up today, but Pin Liang felt like everyone was looking at him strangely. It was almost as if they were mocking him. Pin Liang didn't know if it was his imagination playing tricks on him, but he felt a little uneasy. Chapter 3:15. You're being insincere, HM. Xiaofu paused. You're still writing it? Yeah, I sent out the news yesterday, saying that I'm writing a letter of blood to Meng Yao. There was an accident, but what do you think people will think of me if I don't write it? Won't they think I'm a coward? Pin Liang asked. This. Gao Xiaofu put down his bag and said hesitantly, Liang Ji, to be honest, a man should always keep his word. I feel that whether or not people laugh at this matter and how they view it, it has nothing to do with you. What matters is what Meng Yao thinks. Meng Yao's attitude is the key. That's right. Pin Liang slapped his thigh, suddenly enlightened. Fu, you're the one who woke me up from my daydream. It's true, what other people think has nothing to do with me, it's Meng Yao's attitude that matters. But how do I know what Meng Yao thinks? Does she want me to write her a letter of blood or not? That. Xiaofu wasn't sure. Maybe you can ask her. How am I supposed to ask her? Fu, maybe you can ask Yushu. She's good friends with Meng Yao, you can ask her. Pin Liang suggested. That works too. I'll ask her. Xiaofu nodded and took out his phone, sending Yushu a text. With modern communication tools like phones, there was no need for him to ask her personally anymore. Miss Yushu, may I ask what Miss Meng Yao thinks about Liang Bro's letter of blood yesterday? Xiaofu's text was very politely, he was afraid that Meng Yao would ignore him. It wasn't long before Xiaofu received Yushu's reply. Yao Yao said that Liangxi's hands are only good as a water gun. Forget about the letter of blood. Xiaofu wanted to laugh, but didn't dare. He handed the phone to Pin Liang. Pin Liang didn't quite understand after reading the text. Fu, what do you think she means? Liang bro, forgive me for being blunt, but I think Meng Yao looks down on you. Xiaofu said carefully. Despise. Pin Liang paused and looked at the message. There was indeed a hint of disdain in it. He panicked. Fu, what should we do? Indeed, it's as if Yushu is laughing at me for not being able to write a blood letter. Brother Liang, why don't you write another blood letter? Prove to them that it's not that you can't do it, that what happened yesterday was just an accident. Gao Xiaofu suggested. That's fine. Pin Liang nodded. This was the only way. Xiaofu quickly prepared a new piece of paper for Pin Liang. Pin Liang held the carving knife in his hand, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. It wasn't that he was afraid of pain, it was just that yesterday's incident had left a lingering fear in his heart. What if he cut his finger and caused it to bleed profusely? Pin Liang hesitated. Liang bro, what's wrong? Xiaofu asked, noticing Pin Liang's hesitation. Xiaofu, I don't dare to do it anymore. What happened yesterday was too fucking scary. Pin Liang's hand was shaking as he held the carving knife. Plus, if he were to cut it today, he'd have to get a new finger. He couldn't keep cutting on the same wound yesterday, wouldn't that hurt? As a result, Pin Liang couldn't bring himself to do it. Liang bro, a man should be harder on himself. Do you want me to help you? Xiaofu asked. You'll help me? Pin Liang blinked. Sure. Fu, you're such a good friend. If that's the case, I won't hold back. I'll treat you to lunch. Aw. Xiaofu paused as well, a bitter smile on his face. He'd wanted to cut Pin Liang's finger with the carving knife, but Pin Liang had clearly misunderstood him, thinking that he wanted to cut his finger and write a blood letter for him. What's wrong? Pin Liang handed the carving knife to Xiaofu. Is there a problem? No. Nothing. Xiaofu took the knife and gritted his teeth, cutting his index finger. Blood gushed out, but Pin Liang's hemorrhage from yesterday didn't happen. Alright, Fu, don't move. I'll use your finger to write a blood letter. With that, Pin Liang held Xiaofu's finger and started writing on the paper in front of him. What he didn't know was that this wasn't unseen. Yushu, who wasn't far away, had her phone raised and zoomed in on the camera, just enough to see Pin Liang and Xiaofu clearly. Yao, this Pin Liang guy isn't much, isn't he? He's using Xiaofu's finger to write a blood letter for you. Isn't that a little too insincere? Yushu said with a giggle. What does that have to do with me? Meng Yao said, ignoring Yushu as she continued reading her book. Man, that's boring. Yushu put her phone away, a little disappointed. I wanted to see Pin Liang's hand turn into a water gun one more time. Meng Yao was speechless. What was there to see? Were you afraid that Pin Liang would die too slowly? The first class ended, and Pin Liang ran over to Meng Yao's desk with the letter written in Xiaofu's blood. He held the letter up with both hands. Yao, please accept my confession of love from the bottom of my heart. Meng Yao frowned. She didn't even look at Pin Liang, nor did she care about him. Yushu, on the other hand, stood up with a smile and took the letter from Pin Liang's hands. Let me check it for you first. Is there anything wrong with it? Okay. Pin Liang was overjoyed that Yushu was willing to help. With Yushu, Meng Yao's best friend, giving him pointers, wouldn't it be just a matter of time before he got to Meng Yao? Ugh. Yushu opened the letter. She didn't want to read it, actually. She didn't have the time to read this guy's crappy letter. But Yushu had an even better idea. What do you think? Pin Liang looked at Yushu expectantly, waiting for her pointers. Hey, why didn't you sign it? Who'd know who wrote it if you did that? Yushu's eyes darted around. She'd finally found an entry point. Sign. Pin Liang blinked. Isn't this a letter written by me? Do I even need to sign it? Of course, you're not sincere at all. Yushu said with a straight face. You don't even have a sign on your letter, it's not official at all. No wonder you couldn't get Yao Yao after all this time. Yushu curled her lips as she spoke, a look of disdain on her face. Chapter 316. The best partner, you don't have to go back, you can do it here. Yushu said with a half-smile as she looked at the band-aid on Pinliang's hand. Other than the cut on his index finger yesterday, Pinliang had also wrapped a band-aid around his right middle finger to confuse Meng Yao and Yushu. He couldn't let them know that today's blood letter was written with Gao Xiaofu's blood, after all. Ah. Here. Pinliang paused before a bitter smile appeared on his face. The wound on my hand has dried up. I'll have to go back and get a carving knife. Oh. It's fine, I have a carving knife here. I'll lend it to you. With that, Yushu pulled out a carving knife from her bag like magic and handed it to Pinliang. Pinliang sweated. Why was he so unlucky? He had thought that he had escaped death, but he did not expect that he would still have to cut his finger. Yushu was right here, too, and it wouldn't be right if he didn't do it. Pinliang's face was covered in cold sweat. It's not a good idea to do it here, is it? What if the blood spurts out everywhere and scares you guys? I say, Liangyi, you don't get it, do you? Yushu said. How could I let you go back? I still want to see you bleed non-stop. She pretended to be teaching him a lesson. Cut your finger in front of the girl you love and sign your name on the blood letter in front of her. That's the only way to show how much you love her. Is that so? Pinliang was starting to get excited. Then I'll do it now. What are you waiting for? Yushu asked back. Then. All right. Pinliang's face lit up with determination. Meng Yao was amused. This Shu really didn't bat an eyelid when it came to messing with people. Zhong Pinliang was in big trouble because of Shu. But she hated Pinliang, so she didn't try to stop him. However, it was also because of Meng Yao's indifferent attitude that Pinliang thought that she was agreeing to it. Under normal circumstances, Meng Yao would have kicked him out impatiently if she didn't like him. But this time, Meng Yao didn't say anything, which meant that she agreed. This made Pinliang even more determined. He took the carving knife from Yushu, wondering which finger he should cut this time. While Pinliang was hesitating, Yushu sent a message to Lin Yi. Shield bro, Pinliang's cutting his finger again. Please come help. Pinliang gripped the carving knife, gritting his teeth as if he'd made a difficult decision. Abruptly, he cut off his right thumb. He could only cut this finger. It was not convenient to write on the other fingers. Lin Yi looked at the message on his phone and stood up slowly. He walked over to Pinliang, a smile on his face when he saw him cut his finger. It seemed like the kid hadn't learned his lesson from yesterday. Don't block the way. Lin Yi said as he pulled on Pinliang's arm, causing him to stumble. Pinliang was just about to sign his name when Lin Yi's voice came from behind him, startling him. He thought that Lin Yi was going to kick him again, but after the push, Lin Yi strode over without hesitation. Phew. Pinliang breathed out in relief. It seemed like Lin Yi didn't do anything to him because he was in a hurry to go to the washroom. Wah! Yushu pointed at Pinliang's finger excitedly. Liangyi, your finger's bleeding. That's so cool. Do you have superpowers? Is this the legendary six-pulse blade? Pinliang blinked, not understanding what Yushu was talking about. He lowered his head to continue writing, only to realize that the paper was already soaked in blood. His hand, on the other hand. Blood was gushing out like a fountain, just like yesterday. Ah! Pinliang yelped as he tossed the blood letter aside and ran back to his seat. Phew, band-aids, give me a band-aid. Yushu raised 2 fingers in a V shape as she watched Pinliang run away. She cheered happily. Yay, success. Shield bro and I work well together. Mengyao didn't know what to say as she looked at her best friend. She was now certain that Pinliang's bleeding yesterday had to have been caused by Lin Yi. Before Lin Yi came over, Pinliang's finger was still bleeding very slowly, but after Lin Yi came over, the blood was gushing out like a fountain. It was obviously Lin Yi's doing, Lin Yi and Yushu. They really were a match made in heaven, the prankster duo. It'd be hard for Pinliang not to be crippled in the future. Mingyao's heart ached a little at the thought of Yushu and Lin Yi being a match made in heaven. She had to admit that Yushu and Yushu were very similar in some ways. Hee, Yao Yao, what do you think? Feels good, right? Let's see if Pinliang dares write that blood letter again. Yushu turned back to look at Pinliang, only to see him trying to wrap a band-aid around his wound. One band-aid wasn't enough to stop the blood anymore. Pinliang had no choice but to wrap it around his finger with cellophane tape. Only this sort of airtight tape could stop the wound. Pinliang found it strange. How did his finger end up like this? It had never happened before. Lin Yi went to the washroom and returned to the classroom. Yushu winked at him and made a victory sign with her hand. Lin Yi smiled. Boss, why did you go out just now? Didn't you see that amazing scene? Kong Xiaobo looked at Lin Yi with a pitiful expression. Oh. What's wrong? Lin Yi asked with a smile as he sat down in his seat. You didn't see it, but Pinliang started spewing blood again. It was spectacular, I've never seen anyone bleed like that before. Kong Xiaobo said. You didn't see it, but it's even worse than yesterday. The blood was shooting out of his hand. Aw. Is that so? Lin Yi said. Of course it was worse than yesterday. He'd only sped up his blood circulation yesterday, but he'd raised his blood pressure today. Lin Yi's phone vibrated again as he spoke. He'd received a text. Great teamwork, the best partner. Yay yay yay. Chapter 317. I don't understand, Kong Xiaobo asked curiously. Boss, whose text is it? It can't be from sis-in-law Tang Yun, right? What Tang Yun? She doesn't even have a phone. Lin Yi glared at Kong Xiaobo. It's the weather report. Oh. Kong Xiaobo remembered that Lin Yi was going to buy a phone with Tang Yun at noon. He was going to buy one for Xiaofan as well. At noon, Lin Yi, Tang Yun, Kong Xiaobo, and Lu Xinwen left the school together. Lin Yi had an old van, so he didn't need to take a taxi anymore. Although the car wasn't good, it was better than nothing. Tang Yun, Kong Xiaobo wants to buy a phone for Xiaofan. It'll be easier to contact her. What about you? Lin Yi asked Tang Yun, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. Kong Xiaobo gave the seat to Tang Yun and sat in the back with Lu Xinwen. Me? I'm not buying it. I don't have much use for it. Tang Yun shook her head. Her family situation didn't allow her to buy a phone. Although it wasn't expensive, she would need to buy a SIM card and a monthly rental fee. It wasn't a small amount, so Tang Yun rejected it. Boss will pay for it. Xiaobo continued. Fan's phone was a gift from my boss, sis-in-law. She'd never accept it if he bought her a phone if you didn't want it, sis-in-law. Please help me. Tang Yun couldn't help but giggle after hearing Kong Xiaobo's words. Begging someone to buy a phone for them. However, Tang Yun remembered that Lin Yi bought her a dress at the night market and asked her for 50 kuai. Thinking about it. It was strange sometimes. Back then, she had hated him to death, but now, she was sitting quietly in his car, sitting beside him. she'd thrown the dress in her closet because she was mad. But she'd probably be able to find it when she got home tonight. Tang Yun couldn't help but smile at the thought. Would she have accepted the dress if he'd given it to her? The answer was no. But now, Lin Yi wanted to buy her a phone, and after some persuasion from Kong Xiaobo, Tang Yun acquiesced. Lin Yi parked the car in front of a mobile phone store, and the four of them got out of the car together. When the salesperson saw that the four of them were wearing school uniforms, he knew that they were students. He immediately recommended a few cheap cell phones. Kong Xiaobo also wanted to buy a cheaper phone. He didn't want Lin Yi to spend money on a smartphone that easily cost a few thousand yuan. What price range do you want to buy? The salesperson asked. Kong Xiaobo wanted to say 200 or 300 yuan, but Lin Yi had to make the decision, so he turned to look at Lin Yi. Lin Yi knew that Kong Xiaobo wanted to buy a cheaper one. According to his plan yesterday, he wanted to buy 200 or 300 yuan, but Lin Yi didn't want to buy one that was too cheap for Tang Yun. If he bought one that was 200 or 300 yuan for Xiaofan, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't buy one that was too expensive for Tang Yun. Differential treatment, and it wouldn't be good if Xiaofan had any ideas. Around 1,000 yuan. Lin Yi thought about it and set a price. Tang Yun wouldn't be able to accept a price that was too expensive, so this price should be about right. Nokia 5233, this phone is very popular among students. It's cheap and has all the functions, but it lacks the GPS function compared to the 5230. But you students won't need that function anyway. The salesperson took out a phone and introduced it to Lin Yi and the others. The price is cheaper than the 5230, only 833 yuan. What do you think? Lin Yi pushed the phone to Tang Yun, asking for her opinion. It's pretty good. But, it's a bit expensive. Tang Yun still couldn't accept the fact that she wanted something from Lin Yi. Although Kong Xiaobo tried to persuade her for a long time, she still felt that she shouldn't buy it. Ha, Lin Yi smiled and said to the salesperson, then I'll take 3 of these phones. How about, we buy the 300 yuan one? Tang Yun saw that Lin Yi wanted to buy it, so she hesitated and pointed at the 300 yuan phone. Please. Kong Xiaobo is giving it to Fun, it's too shabby, he can't take it out, right? Lin Yi whispered. Oh. Tang Yun could only nod, but she felt a bit depressed in her heart. She owed Lin Yi more and more. How could she pay him back? From the barbecue recipe, to him helping her and her mother chase away those bullies, to Fun's medical fees, although Kong Xiaobo played a part in it, most of it was because of her face. So Tang Yun couldn't pretend that she didn't know anything. He saved her again. Now he wanted to buy a phone for her. Tang Yun didn't know if her relationship with Lin Yi would become more and more complicated if this continued. Did he really like her? While he was hesitating, Lin Yi had already bought 3 phones and 2 SIM cards. One of them was Fun's birthday, and the other was Tang Yin's birthday. Xinwen was in charge of both of them. Lin Yi swiped the card and distributed the phones. Tang Yun got one, Kong Xiaobo got one, and Lu Xinwen had an older phone, so she didn't need to buy it. Lin Yi used the last one for himself. The expensive phone from before was also broken, so Lin Yi bought a cheap one. No matter how expensive it was, it would be ruined if it was soaked in water. Lin Yi's job was more dangerous, so he chose a cheap phone. If it wasn't for the fact that Yushu's phone was too feminine and Lin Yi didn't want to take it out, Lin Yi would just use it. Tang Yun sighed lightly. She owed him a lot. She owed him a lot already, so a phone wouldn't make much of a difference. But when she got in the car, she whispered to Lin Yi, "Thank you, Ha." Lin Yi smiled and turned his head to look at Tang Yun mischievously. "Then how are you going to thank me?" "Wah. How am I going to thank you?" Tang Yun jumped and blushed, remembering what she promised him yesterday at the hospital. Her heart raced. Yesterday at the hospital, you still owe me a kiss. Lin Yi said in a low voice. As expected, he was talking about that. Tang Yun blushed. Wah. What? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand. Chapter 318. A moment of brilliance. Lin Yi drove Tang Yun, Kong Xiaobo, and Lu Xinwen to the entrance of the hospital. Then. I'll be leaving. Tang Yun hugged the phone, feeling a bit uneasy. It was the first time she'd received such an expensive gift from someone, and it was from a boy. Tang Yun couldn't calm down for a long time. Yeah, I won't be using my phone for the next few days. Text me if there's anything, I'll check it after I turn it on. Lin Yi said, you can take a taxi with Xiaobo later, let him pay. Ha! And Tang Yun couldn't help but smile as she listened to Lin Yi's words. Her smile was like a blooming flower. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat as he grabbed Tang Yun's hand and pulled her back. What? What are you doing? Tang Yun froze and looked at Kong Xiaobo and Lu Xinwen, who'd already gotten out of the car. She let out a breath of relief when she saw that they weren't looking at her. Aren't you going to say something before we leave? Lin Yi pointed at his face. I'll say it again. Tang Yun couldn't stand Lin Yi's teasing. She struggled out of Lin Yi's hand and ran out of the car. Her heart raced as she let out a long breath. She looked at Lin Yi and pouted before turning around and ignoring him. If it had been anyone else, Tang Yun would have run away crying, but with Lin Yi, all she felt was shyness. Tang Yun, who suddenly realized this, started to feel lost. Was it a good thing for her to fall deeper and deeper in love with Lin Yi? Yun, what's wrong? You don't look well. Lu Xinwen was talking to Kong Xiaobo when she looked up to see Tang Yun's reddened face. It was like she had a heat stroke. It's nothing. Tang Yun quickly shook her head. Let's go. Xinwen shook her head. She didn't know what happened to Tang Yun. She turned around to look at Lin Yi's car, but realized that Lin Yi's car was already far away. She could only bury the question in her heart. Before leaving the country, Lin Yi had to deal with Lu Zhenhu's illness first. While he could extort some money from the man, he could also give Xuemin time to start planning for the medical company. This incident made Lin Yi realize that it was better to be on time than to be on time. He was just thinking about how to get 100 million yuan of startup capital, and in the blink of an eye, the Lu family sent it to him. The efficiency of raising funds was probably unmatched. Lin Yi gave Guan Xuemin a call and told him to call Zhenhu and the others over. He'd be there soon. All right, Lu Tiany's already waiting here, waiting for your news. He'll have someone bring Elder Lu here. Xuemin said. Have you had lunch? Not yet, but there's no rush, Lin Yi said. All right then, I'll have Axian prepare some food. Xuemin made the decision for Lin Yi. Ah. All right, Lin Yi didn't argue about these trivial things and drove straight to Xuemin's house. By the time Lin Yi got there, Zhenhu was already there. He was sitting in the living room waiting for Lin Yi. When he saw Lin Yi walk in, Zhenhu stood up with Lu Tiany's help. Miracle doctor, I'll have to trouble you then. Zhenhu's attitude made Lin Yi a little embarrassed. He took so much money from him, and he was still being so respectful to him. But he really needed money right now, so he couldn't be soft-hearted. Plus, he couldn't be blamed for this. They only had themselves to blame for marrying a snobbish daughter-in-law and having a retarded nephew. Elder Lu, you don't have to be so polite. Lin Yi waved his hand. Let's go find an empty room. All right, Miracle Dr. Lin, about the consultation fee. Lu Tiany wasn't an idiot. Even if Lin Yi didn't ask about the consultation fee, he couldn't not mention it. If he pretended not to know, then he'd be an idiot. Grandpa Guan, do you have a bank account? Transfer it directly. Lin Yi turned to Xuemin. Transfer it to my account. Xuemin paused for a moment, then understood that Lin Yi wanted him to plan for the medical company. He nodded. All right, transfer it to my account first. Mr. Liu, do you know my account number? I do. Liu Tianyi nodded. He'd planned to transfer 2 million to Xuemin as well, so he'd memorized Xuemin's number. Liu Tianyi called one of his subordinates and had them transfer the 100 million to Xuemin's account. A moment later, Xuemin's phone rang with a notification. After confirming that there were no issues, Lin Yi nodded in satisfaction. It seemed that Liu Tianyi was a man of his word. He didn't have to completely cut ties with him in the future. But that wife of his was nothing to be proud of. In an empty room upstairs, Lin Yi had Jinhu lie down and asked Xuemin for a box of silver needles. He then looked at Jinhu quietly, not in a hurry to insert the needles. He was thinking about something. He'd already checked on Jinhu's condition the first time they met, so he didn't need to check it again. What he needed to do now was think of a treatment plan, the quickest and most effective way to cure Jinhu's angina. Of course, a complete cure wasn't possible, at least not right now. Old Lin's miraculous pills were hidden away like treasures, so he couldn't take them out even if he wanted to. But it was possible to keep the disease from acting up for 10 years, but that was a bit of a scam. Lin Yi sighed. Whatever, he'd keep the disease under control for 10 years first. If Jinhu really did live to 100 years old, then he'd think of something else. With that in mind, Lin Yi quickly inserted needles into Jinhu's body. His speed was so fast that even Xuemin, the god of acupuncture, was in awe. He did it in one go. 2 minutes later, Lin Yi began inserting needles into each needle. Neguan, Shimen, Yin Qi, Juk, Shanzhong, inject energy into the needles. Jiao Lao's voice suddenly rang in Lin Yi's ears. Lin Yi was overjoyed. He didn't know what kind of person Jiao Lao was, but with his help, things would be much easier. Lin Yi hurriedly did as he was told. The needle handle that had been injected with energy suddenly began to vibrate with a buzzing sound, as if something was driving it. Even when Lin Yi's hand left the handle, the needles continued to vibrate on Jinhu's body. Chapter 319. A master in disguise, Liu Tianyi, who'd been watching Lin Yi's acupuncture, didn't know much about acupuncture, but he was still shocked by what he was seeing. Seeing the same expression on Guan Xuemin's face, Liu Tianyi was even more certain that Lin Yi was a master in disguise. In actuality, Lin Yi was just as shocked as Tianyi and Guan Xuemin were. He didn't think that infusing the art of dragon mastery into the needles would result in something like this. Jiao Lao, what's going on? Lin Yi asked. It's normal. Jiao Lao's voice was still calm. Although you can't use the energy from the art of dragon mastery to treat the patient with your first stage, you can still maintain it like last time. Do as I say, and you should be able to make it through 10 years. What? That's it. Lin Yi was pleasantly surprised. In his original plan, he'd planned to use acupuncture and medicine together. As long as the patient kept taking medicine after the acupuncture, he'd be able to control the angina, but he'd have to do acupuncture once a year. Of course, he'd thought of an excuse beforehand. He'd said that he'd check up once a year, and the Lius would be more than happy to bring Jinhu over for acupuncture. That way, he wouldn't go back on his promise, saying that he'd treat Jinhu for 10 years, not all at once. But now, he didn't have to worry about that anymore, because Jiao Lao's voice sounded. Of course. The pure energy in your body is more than enough to maintain a patient's bodily functions, and that's it. Is that strange? It is. Does that mean other Golden Class Masters can do the same? Lin Yi asked. Didn't I say it before? Only the energy in your body is pure energy. The martial arts they practice produce pure qi, and every martial art has a different type of pure qi. That's why the pure qi produced only works on their own martial arts. If used on others, it'll either be useless, or have the opposite effect. Zhao Lao said with a tone of exasperation. Ha ha. I see. Lin Yi laughed awkwardly. In front of others, Lin Yi could call them idiots, but in front of Zhao Lao, Lin Yi could only laugh dryly. Alright, time to put the needles away. Now, follow the order I say, and insert the needles into Jian Shu. Zhao Lao named a few more acupoints. Send the energy in. Lin Yi did as he was told, and the needles danced again. Guan Shuamin was amazed, and Lu Tianyi even looked up to Lin Yi as if he was a god. The 100 million was worth it. If he had an argument with Lin Yi because of the 100 million, not only would he have missed out on such a miraculous treatment, but the Lu family would have missed out on a miracle doctor. Phew, Lin Yi let out a long breath. Although he had enough energy in his body, transmitting the energy for a long time still made Lin Yi sweat. After repeating this 3 times, Lin Yi put away the needles, wiped the sweat off his forehead, and said, Done. Done. It wasn't that Lu Tianyi didn't trust Lin Yi, but it had only been an hour or so. His father's angina had been treated for so many years, and he had visited countless famous doctors to no avail. How could he be cured in a little more than an hour? Although he had seen the magic of Lin Yi's acupuncture, it was still hard for Lu Tianyi to believe that Lin Yi had cured his father's illness in such a short amount of time. But he didn't dare to ask, afraid that he would make Lin Yi unhappy. He could only hold back his questions and look at his father. Dad, how do you feel? Lu Tianyi could only ask his father how he felt. Much better, so comfortable. But my body feels so uncomfortable, I need to take a bath. Lu Zhenhu felt refreshed, but there was a sticky feeling on his body that was very uncomfortable. Ha! Lu Tianyi ran over to help his father up, but he was shocked to see a layer of greasy black and yellow dirt on his father's skin. What? What is this? Guan Shuamin also walked over after being reminded by Lu Tianyi. When Lin Yi was performing acupuncture, the two of them were afraid that they would affect Lin Yi, so they stood far behind him. When they got closer, their hands were trembling in shock. Bone and marrow cleansing. Guan Shuamin naturally knew about bone and marrow cleansing in ancient medicine, but it had been lost for many years. Bone and marrow cleansing referred to the use of acupuncture or herbs to expel toxins from the body, achieving an effect similar to rebirth. It was inevitable that toxins would be stored in the body when humans ate grains. Although metabolism could expel some of it, there was still some that would be absorbed by the body. As time went on, the toxins would accumulate more and more. Guan Shuamin didn't expect Lin Yi's acupuncture to be so effective. Not only could it cure diseases, but it could also expel toxins from the body. Lin Yi paused when he heard what Guan Shuamin called him, but then Zhao Yazi's voice sounded in his ears. Lin Yi, your pure energy has a part of the effect of expelling toxins, so even if you didn't do it on purpose, it would still bring about this result. But that Lu Zhenhu will probably live a few more years, and you'll have to perform acupuncture on him in 10 years. Lu Zhenhu. Lin Yi didn't know what to say, but it wasn't all that strange coming from Zhao Lao's mouth. Zhao Lao was an old monster, and although Lin Yi wanted to ask, Zhao Lao kept saying that he was too weak to know too much, so there was nothing Lin Yi could do. But one thing was for sure, Zhao Lao was far older than Lu Zhenhu, which was why he called him kid. Ha! Lin Yi smiled, but didn't explain. It seemed that Lu Zhenhu's 100 million hadn't been spent in vain. Not only did it cure his illness, it also extended his life. Good things like this couldn't be bought with money. But, since Shinhu was going to live a few more years, Lin Yi had to give him a heads up. Elder Lu's health isn't good, so I did it for a bit. But I have some bad news for you, Mr. Lu. Oh. What news? Please tell me, Miracle Dr. Lin. Lu Tianyi was startled. He thought that bone and marrow cleansing was a good thing, and the excitement from Guan Xuemin made him think that his father had gotten a great bargain. But then he heard Lin Yi say that there was bad news. Even the usually calm Lu Zhenhu couldn't help but raise his head. Didn't Lin Yi say that he was cured? Why would there be bad news? Could it be that bone and marrow cleansing was harmful to the body? But why did he feel so good? Chapter 320. Let me tell you some bad news. Lin Yi wasn't expecting everyone to be looking at him with such nervous gazes. Did he scare them with his tone? Mr. Lu, I said I could cure Elder Lu's illness in 10 years, so it's 10 years. That bone and marrow cleansing thing is a complimentary gift. Lin Yi paused. But the bad news is that you'll need to prepare the money 10 years from now. You'll still need to prepare it. Elder Lu can live for more than 10 years after the bone and marrow cleansing. Ah. Lu Tianyi blinked, surprised and overjoyed at the same time. This wasn't bad news at all, it couldn't be any better. How could it be bad news? So what if he had to prepare money after 10 years? As long as his father lived, House Lu would continue to prosper. Lu Tianyi was so moved that he couldn't speak. Miracle Dr. Lin. You're the savior of House Lu. Lin Yi waved his hand. All right, I'm tired, I need to rest. Yes, yes. Miracle Dr. Lin needs to rest, I'll take my father to the bath first. Lu Tianyi didn't want to disturb Lin Yi any longer. He'd wanted to say some more words of gratitude, but held them back. Zhenhu couldn't help but be overjoyed at Lin Yi's words. Not only would he live for another 10 years, he'd be able to live a few more years on top of that. This was really good news. Tianyi, you have to prepare a big gift for young Miracle Dr. Lin after this is over. Consultation fee is consultation fee, thank you gift is thank you gift, you can't mix the two together. Zhenhu knew how important a miracle doctor was to the family, and naturally he wouldn't let go of any chance to befriend Lin Yi. Zhenhu wouldn't look down on Lin Yi anymore. Age didn't determine one's ambitions. Lin Yi might be young, but he was capable. Yes, Dad. I understand. Lu Tianyi quickly nodded and helped his father up. No, I feel like I'm 10 years younger. It's like I've returned to the time when I was in my 70s. My body is very good, and I have strength. Zhenhu waved his hand and stood up, pacing a few steps around the room. Not bad at all. Lu Tianyi was even more surprised at this moment. Although he did not doubt the authenticity of Lin Yi's words, it was not as shocking as seeing it with his own eyes. His father, who used to need the help of others to walk and couldn't walk fast, was now walking as if he was flying. Was this still an old man in his 90s? At this moment, Lu Tianyi had also made up his mind to build a good relationship with Lin Yi at all costs. This was a rising star in the medical world, after all. His family had to make the first move and wait for the news to spread. All the noble houses would flock to fawn over Lin Yi, and then the Lus would have nothing to do with it. Lu Tianyi, Zhenhu, and Xuemin left the room and closed the door for Lin Yi. Lin Yi was a bit tired, but he silently practiced the first stage of the art of dragon mastery in his mind. The energy he had lost was replenished, and he was back to his energetic self. You brat, how can you be so devious? You can't cure his illness, and you're telling him to prepare the money 10 years later for treatment. And he's still grateful to you. Jiao Yazi's voice rang out. Then what should I say? That I didn't cure him. Lin Yi sweated. He really was a bit devious. But you're not devious enough. You're not as devious as my master uncle. If it were him, he would have asked for another bone and marrow cleansing fee. Jiao Yazi said. Lin Yi fainted. When Lin Yi came downstairs, Guan Axayan had already placed the dishes on the table. Jinhu and Lu Tianyi hadn't left either. Jinhu had clearly just showered, as his hair was still damp. However, he looked energetic as he chatted with Xuemin about something. Jinhu and Lu Tianyi stood up again when Lin Yi came downstairs. Miracle Dr. Lin, you've worked hard. It's nothing. Is it time to eat? Mr. Lu and Elder Lu, would you like to join us? Lin Yi looked at the food on the table. It was enough for a few people, so he invited them. Then I'll gladly accept your invitation. This old man will shamelessly come and freeload. Jinhu wanted the Lius to get closer to Lin Yi as well, so he immediately accepted Lin Yi's invitation. The Lius were now convinced that Lin Yi really was Xuemin's mentor. Although this was Xuemin's house, it wasn't appropriate for them to stay and eat with Lin Yi. Guan Axin brought out the dishes one by one, and then placed the bowls and chopsticks on the table like a little wife. Alright, let's eat together. Yi must be hungry, right? Let's skip the formalities and get straight to the point. Xuemin was worried that Lin Yi would be too tired, so he asked everyone to get straight to the point. Alright. Lin Yi nodded, but noticed Guan Axin standing to the side. Guan Axin, you're here too. Guan Axin looked at Xuemin. In the past, when Xuemin's friends came over, Guan Axin wouldn't join in the fun. After all, she was a junior. Yesterday, it was only Lin Yi, and the two knew each other, so Xuemin wanted to introduce Lin Yi to her. That was why Guan Axin came. But today, Jinhu and Lu Tianyi were here, so it wasn't appropriate for Guan Axin to just sit down. Axin, let's eat together. You can sit next to Yi. Xuemin said with a smile. Okay. Guan Axin nodded, happy as she sat down next to Lin Yi. Lu Tianyi wanted to sit next to Lin Yi to get closer to him, but Guan Axin suddenly sat down. He was a little disappointed, but at the same time, he started to pay more attention to Guan Axin. Guan Axin's shy and happy expression just now was reflected in Lu Tianyi's eyes. Lu Tianyi wasn't an idiot, he could tell Guan Axin's feelings for Lin Yi with just one look. No wonder Lin Yi was so close to House Guan, it was because of this. It seemed that even if he got to know a miracle doctor like Lin Yi, he couldn't cut off his connection with Xuemin. Lu Tianyi made up his mind. Guan Axin put 100% of her effort into cooking today's meal, and it was a world of difference compared to yesterday's. Lin Yi, of course, ate heartily. Guan Axin, on the other hand, ate very little, but she was even happier to see Lin Yi enjoying the food. Lin Yi didn't linger after the meal. He still had to prepare for his trip abroad, and it was about time for him to leave for the airport. His flight was at 4 in the afternoon, and it was already 1. Lu Tianyi and Jinhu were a little disappointed to see Lin Yi leave in a hurry, and so was Guan Axin. Xuemin, on the other hand, didn't mind. He used to look forward to Lin Yi's visits, but now that he had a project with Lin Yi would definitely come more often. Chapter 321. Meeting Wang Xinyan again. Faubert's Bentley was already parked in front of the villa. Lin Yi parked the van in the garden and opened the door for Faubert. Faubert, wait for me. I need to get changed. Okay, just in time to prepare the things you need to bring, Uncle Fu nodded and said. Lin Yi was wearing a school uniform right now. He couldn't just leave the country like that because it would be too eye-catching. The Songshan First School's uniform wasn't very eye-catching in Songshan, but it wasn't available in other cities, let alone overseas. If Lin Yi were to appear in that uniform, he'd definitely be noticed by the local gangs. Lin Yi changed into the casual clothes he'd bought at the night market and put on a pair of sunglasses. He then took out the blade from his shoe and threw it into the drawer. Something like that wouldn't be able to get past airport security. He'd just buy another one and put it in his shoe when he got there. Lin Yi left his phone on the desk and came out without anything else. "You're not bringing anything." Falbert looked at Lin Yi's outfit, a little surprised. "What's there to bring?" "I'm just bringing someone back." Lin Yi shook his head. Falbert didn't say anything as he handed a credit card and plane ticket to Lin Yi. "This credit card can be overdrawn up to $1 million USD. The password is the same as the one I gave you before." Lin Yi didn't decline and put the card and plane ticket into his pocket. Lin Yi wasn't a stranger to flying, but this was his first time using Lin Yi's identity. He'd had all sorts of random names when he was on missions before. Lin Yi packed lightly and got on the plane in no time at all. Falbert had bought a first-class ticket. With Pingzhan's wealth, a first-class ticket wasn't much at all. Falbert had bought a transfer ticket that required a transfer at Yanjing. However, as soon as Lin Yi boarded the plane, he closed his eyes and prepared to sleep. "Sir, can I go over?" Lin Yi's seat was near the aisle. As soon as he got on the plane, he lowered his head as if he was asleep. However, in fact, Lin Yi didn't sleep. He just closed his eyes. When he heard someone talking, he guessed that it might be the passengers sitting inside, so he stood up. But when he saw the person, he was stunned. It's you." Xinyan looked at the man in the big sunglasses. He looked familiar, but she didn't know who he was. "You're..." Lin Yi was stunned. He then remembered that he was still wearing sunglasses, so he reached out and took them off. "What about this time?" "It's you." Lin Yi. Xinyan looked at Lin Yi, a little surprised. What are you doing here?" But then Xinyan realized that her question was a little stupid. They were on a plane, and Lin Yi naturally had to take the plane to Yanjing. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here. Why you're here is why I'm here." Lin Yi shrugged. "Do you have luggage?" "I'll help you put it on." "Yeah." Xinyan nodded after a moment of hesitation. She was dragging a suitcase, and it would be a little troublesome for a girl to lift it up. She wanted to wait for the flight attendant to help, but Lin Yi did it for her. Xinyan didn't hesitate. "Thank you. It's no trouble at all." Lin Yi opened the luggage rack with one hand and grabbed Xinyan's suitcase with the other, placing it firmly on top of it. Xinyan's mouth was agape. The suitcase wasn't heavy, but putting it on with one hand showed that Lin Yi had quite the strength. Xinyan sat down, and so did Lin Yi. "Thank you for last time." Xinyan had always wanted to say thank you to Lin Yi. If it weren't for Lin Yi, she would have gotten into a lot of trouble. It's nothing," Lin Yi shook his head. "Plus, didn't you help me on the train last time?" That time." Xinyan smiled at the memory of what happened on the train. "You really scared me that time. I thought you were tricked, but who would have thought that those people were the ones who got the worst of it?" "You're going to Yanjing too?" "Yeah, it's just a transfer." Lin Yi nodded. "Oh. I see." Xinyan was a little disappointed. She'd wanted to treat Lin Yi to a meal to express her gratitude, but Lin Yi had a transfer, so he couldn't leave the airport. The airport was mostly full of fast food, and it wasn't suitable for a formal treat. "What about you? What are you going to Yanjing for?" Lin Yi asked. I'm going to take care of some family matters." Xinyan's face darkened a little. Oh. Lin Yi saw that Xinyan didn't seem to want to talk about herself, so he didn't press the issue. The two fell into silence. It was obvious that Wang Xinyan was a girl who wasn't good at communicating with people. She was a bit of an introvert, after all. She wouldn't have been listening to her MP3 player when they met on the train. It was also because Xinyan wasn't good with words that Wu Huiru was able to trick her in the business district of the city center. If it had been Yushu or Xinwen, that violent girl, Wu Huiru would have been the one running. Your phone number is. The two spoke at the same time. Xinyan couldn't help but smile at each other. Xinyan blushed a little. Give me your phone, I'll help you. I don't have it with me, I'll give you my number, and you can text me. Lin Yi said. My number is 152x times x times 1234, okay. Xinyan nodded, and took out a small phone. She keyed in Lin Yi's number and texted it over. You live in Yanjing. The journey was long, and Xinyan didn't like to talk much. Lin Yi had to find a topic himself. It's my grandpa's house. Xinyan said, a little sad. My grandpa passed away. I'm going to the funeral, aw. Lin Yi blinked, knowing that Xinyan had brought up something sad. My condolences. But why are you alone? My parents passed away before me. I'm still in school, so I had to apply for leave. Xinyan explained. It's nothing. My grandpa and I aren't that close, and we've only met a few times. It's just that I feel bad. My mom broke off with my family when she married my dad. My grandpa and my grandpa are enemies. Lin Yi was getting a bit of a headache from listening to this family's relationship was complicated enough. No wonder Xinyan didn't look too sad at all. Perhaps her mother hadn't gone back much after breaking up with her family, and her grandfather was her grandfather's enemy. Naturally, he wouldn't be too nice to someone with the surname Wang. Chapter 322. Incorrect information, aw. Xinyan blinked. You're an orphan. You could say that, but I have an old man who loves me dearly. You could call him adoptive father or grandpa. Anyways, his age is a little awkward. Lin Yi scratched his head. I guess I'll just have to call him old man. Aw. Xinyan chuckled at Lin Yi's words. You don't have to comfort me, I'm fine. I'm just feeling a little uncomfortable. My grandpa just passed away, and now my uncles are fighting over the inheritance. Even my grandpa's body was left in the hospital, and my parents were the ones who organized the funeral. Lin Yi was speechless. He didn't know what to say to Xinyan's uncles, letting a daughter they'd broken up with come back to take care of the funeral while they were busy fighting over the inheritance. But it's fine. Our family isn't after anything. My grandpa's family is richer and more powerful than my grandpa's, but my parents have built a place for themselves after all these years. Xinyan had kept these words bottled up in her heart for a long time, and she probably didn't have anyone she could talk to normally. She decided to talk to someone she could get along with, Lin Yi. It's just that. My uncle said that my mom's going back to fight over the inheritance. Lin Yi didn't know what to say as he listened to Xinyan's story. This was family business, after all, and Lin Yi wasn't in a position to butt in. Aw. I'm just whining, just don't bother me. Xinyan shook her head with a bitter smile. It's fine, didn't I tell you? Every family has their own problems, and things like this are hard to deal with. As long as you do your best, it'll be fine. Lin Yi said. Yeah, as long as you do your best, it'll be fine. Xinyan nodded. The two talked for a while, and Xinyan seemed to be getting sleepy as well. She leaned back in her chair, falling asleep after a while. Lin Yi turned down the air conditioner for her before closing his eyes as well. The plane was already descending when Lin Yi woke up. Xinyan was listening to her MP3 player, a few bags of snacks and a glass of juice on the table. Xinyan took her headphones off when she saw that Lin Yi was awake. She handed Lin Yi a bag of snacks from the table. Here, they were distributed on the plane when you were asleep. I got one for you. You can eat it. I don't like these things very much. Lin Yi took a look at it and found it was mostly dehydrated vegetable slices. He didn't like it. Yeah, thanks. Xinyan seemed to like these snacks a lot, and she'd already finished her portion. It didn't take long for the plane to land at Yanjing Airport, and Xinyan went to the domestic arrival point while Lin Yi went to the international transfer lounge. The encounter with Wang Xinyan was just a small interlude, and Lin Yi was on a plane to Blue Town. There was no one he knew on the plane this time, and so Lin Yi closed his eyes and fell asleep. When he opened his eyes, he was already in a foreign land. This was a small town full of exotic atmosphere, but it was not Blue Town. Blue Town was a few kilometers away from here by car. Lin Yi flagged down a taxi after exiting the airport, telling the driver that he was going to Blue Town in English. English was the common language of the world, and it was effective in this exotic European town as well. There were many customers on the way from the airport to Blue Town, and the driver was used to it. Ever since the Blue Water took control of Blue Town, it had become a place of luxury and debauchery, with casinos, red light districts, and drug dealing all over the place. There were a lot of customers visiting Blue Town every day, and the driver thought that Lin Yi was a tourist. You can have some fun there, young man, but don't get too addicted to it. Or else. Sigh. Thanks, I'm just going to take a look. Lin Yi thought that the driver was a good guy, after all. The driver didn't try to convince him otherwise, and started talking about the local culture in Blue Town instead. Lin Yi had a clear Asian face, and he was obviously a tourist. Don't offend the people in blue baseball caps in Blue Town, they're members of the Blue Water gang, and they hang out in casinos and brothels. The Blue Water is the only gang in Blue Town, and they're very powerful. You might not be able to come back if you piss them off. I've heard of that before. Lin Yi nodded. Right, sir, I'd like to ask, where's the Blue Water HQ? HQ? Why are you asking? The driver asked, suddenly alarmed. I'm staying somewhere far away from them. It sounds scary, and I'm traveling alone. I want to avoid trouble. Lin Yi explained with a smile. Oh, I see. The driver let out a breath of relief. The Blue Water HQ is in an old castle on the west side of the town, but the core of the Blue Water isn't there. The castle is too eye-catching, and there's only the Blue Water members there. I see. Lin Yi wondered. Could the information be wrong? According to the information Guangbua had given him, that Blue Castle was the Blue Water's headquarters. But Guangbua hadn't looked into it before, something that even a taxi driver knew. Yeah, one of my cousins is a member of the Blue Water, so he knows a bit more. Their HQ is in an auto repair shop in the North District, and only a few people know about it. But you're a tourist from another city, so it's fine to tell you. Try not to go to the North District. Alright, I won't go then. Lin Yi was moved. Just as he expected. The HQ of the Blue Water wasn't too big of a secret, but it was too far from Songshan, and Guangbua could only find some superficial information. Without actual investigation, there would be no specific search results on the internet. Lin Yi had the driver drop him off in the Blue City, and then took another taxi to the North District, finding a hotel to check into. There were plenty of tourists from the east like Lin Yi, so no one in the hotel paid any attention to Lin Yi. Lin Yi took a quick look at the room before leaving the hotel with his sunglasses on, wandering the streets of the North District. Chapter 323. Chapter 323. First time in the city. Lin Yi walked the streets of the Northern District leisurely. Lin Yi didn't have a destination in mind, so all he needed to do was remember the way back. At an ATM, Lin Yi took out a few €1,000 and put it in his pocket before continuing to stroll around the Northern District. A car repair factory. Lin Yi frowned. He'd never known it before, but now that he'd come out, he realized just how big the Northern District was. There were all sorts of people, with nightclubs, discotheques, and karaoke all over the place. It seemed like the closer he got to the Blue Waters HQ, the more businesses there were. Lin Yi didn't believe that these were just legal. Lin Yi saw a couple of women flirting with him as he walked past. Of course, Lin Yi didn't know if the sex trade was illegal here, and Lin Yi didn't have the time to look into it either. After a moment of silence, he made a bold decision. He stopped a man with a scar on his face and a blue baseball cap. This guy didn't look like a good person at first glance, especially the obvious gang emblem on top of his head, which could also prove this point. He wasn't one of the higher-ups of the Blue Water, though. What kind of person would walk around alone without a bodyguard? Do you know who I am, kid? Do you want to die? The scarred man wasn't expecting Lin Yi to stop him. He started yelling in the local language. Hey, don't rush, bro. Lin Yi pretended to be cautious as he looked around. I'm from out of town, and I heard that the Blue Water gang has some cheap cars for sale. I'd like to buy one to play with. Do you have any connections, bro? Don't worry, there'll be benefits. Oh. You want to buy a car? The scarred man looked Lin Yi up and down. Lin Yi's skin was obviously foreign, and he didn't look like a spy from the cops either. He didn't say anything else. The Blue Water did have a large number of stolen cars in their hands, and that was one of their main sources of income. They'd buy illegal and stolen cars from other cities, change their engine numbers and license plates, and then sell them to the less well-managed areas. As a low-level member of the Blue Water gang, selling stolen cars, drugs, and even bringing customers to the casino would earn them a hefty commission. That was pretty much how they lived. So the scarred man was interested when he heard that Lin Yi wanted to buy a car. What car are you buying? How much is it? Scarface didn't ask Lin Yi what he was buying the car for, since there was no need to ask. It was a rule in the industry, and if people didn't ask about the origin of the car, then there was no need to care about what the car was for. In any case, the money was exchanged, and the goods were exchanged. They did not owe each other anything, and after that, they did not know each other. Anything is fine, as long as it's a little cheaper. Lin Yi naturally wouldn't put on airs and buy a high-priced stolen car. Anyway, this kind of thing could be thrown away after it was used. Even if Lin Yi used Falbert's credit card, Lin Yi didn't want to cause trouble. Who knew if this guy in front of him was the kind of person who was greedy for money? What if he saw his extravagant spending and had evil thoughts? Lin Yi wasn't afraid of him, but Lin Yi's main goal was to bring Xie Jinbiao back to the country. He didn't plan on getting into any conflict with the Blue Water gang. Whether they were good or bad had nothing to do with Lin Yi. Scarface wasn't disappointed by Lin Yi's words. After all, most of the luxury cars were smuggled to other countries, and the ones left for sale weren't anything good. It was good enough for someone like him to get a deal like this in a month, so he didn't mind. They're cheap, ranging from a few €100 to a few $1,000 are fine too. Take me there. Lin Yi said. Follow me. Scarface nodded and led Lin Yi through the Northern District. Lin Yi followed behind him at a leisurely pace, arriving at the entrance of a car repair shop after 10 or so minutes of walking. A smile formed on Lin Yi's lips. It seemed that he'd made the right bet. The Blue Water stolen cars were indeed stored in the factory. This repair shop was probably the Blue Water's headquarters. York, who's this guy? A Blue Water member with a blue hat standing guard at the door recognized Scarface, but not Lin E. Here to buy a car. York greeted him with a smile and swaggered into the shop with Lin E. Evidently, they didn't think that Lin E would be able to cause much of a ruckus in Blue Water territory by himself. They didn't even bother with a body search before letting him in. Lin E shook his head inwardly. The Blue Water's management was a little too lax. In actuality, the Blue Water was the overlord of Blue City. The Blue Water members could wipe out anyone who tried to cause trouble in any part of the city, let alone the headquarters. York brought Lin E to a big yard at the back of the repair factory. There were close to 100 cars parked there, some models Lin E had seen before, and some he hadn't seen before. They all looked like they'd been there for a long time. They're all here. Pick one you like and give it a try, it's fine. York's attitude was quite nice. He'd get a high commission if this deal went through, and he'd have a month's worth of pocket money. This one. Lin E pointed at a nondescript old Santana. This one. I'll give you a discount. How about €500? York gave a price after a glance at the car Lin E was talking about. That's a little expensive, but I'm buying it with sincerity. Lin E shook his head. It's not expensive, it's a reasonable price. This is a car from 10 years ago, and it's still very good. York said. 400. Lin E took a look at the model and condition of the car. It was probably from the 90s, and this car was probably as old as he was. 10 years. Maybe 18 years, a little higher, 450. York asked. In actuality, Lin E wasn't cutting the price too harshly. It was more or less a normal price, and he did look sincere. 400 it is. This car is more than 10 years old, and I'm just buying it for a ride. Who knows, I might throw it away in a few days. Lin E said. All right, 400 it is then. York nodded readily. Cash in one hand, and the goods in the other. Chapter 324. A cool girl. Nope, remember my number. Call me if anyone tries to stop you. York paused before taking off his hat and handing it to Lin E. Here, you wear my hat, and the cops in this city won't give us any trouble. All right, thank you. Lin E put the hat on. I'll just say I'm Boss York's lackey if anyone gives me any trouble, all right? Of course. York was so happy that he couldn't stop smiling when Lin E called him boss. Just say it. I, York, have a bit of a reputation in this little blue city. Lin E nodded, counting out €400 and handing it to York. Lin E only had a few €1,000 in his pocket, so York wasn't too greedy. He let Lin E get in his car after taking the money. The keys were in the car, so there was no need to worry about it being stolen in the garage. Lin E drove out of the garage. Lin E's things were a lot easier now that he had the hat, and York thought he'd taken advantage of him. The car hadn't gone far when they saw a pretty girl trying to flag down a car. She waved when she saw Lin Yi's car coming over. Naturally, Lin Yi wasn't really interested in hitchhiking. There were at least 80 pretty girls who'd hit on him in the north, and no one knew what they did for a living. Lin Yi, however, was paying attention to the girl because she was an Asian. It was a strange feeling to see an Asian girl in a foreign country. The girl had a pair of sunglasses on her cool face, and a black outfit that was quite eye-catching. Lin Yi, however, felt a sense of familiarity, even though the sunglasses covered most of her face. Lin Yi wouldn't have stopped the car if it weren't for the fact that she looked familiar. What's up? Lin Yi was wearing a blue baseball cap and a pair of oversized sunglasses. His outfit was probably similar to this cool chick's, and it was hard to tell his true appearance from the outside. Handsome, can I hitch a ride? The cool chick squeezed out a smile on her cool face. Hitchhike. I don't even know where I'm going. How am I supposed to drive you? As Lin Yi spoke, he sized up the young girl. She looked very familiar, giving Lin Yi a feeling of déjà vu, but he couldn't remember where. He'd seen too many people these years, and it was normal for him to feel a sense of familiarity from time to time. That's great. Since you don't know where to go, just send me to Canhee Hotel. The cool girl opened the door of the front passenger seat and got in the car. Ha! Lin Yi smiled. I don't know where the Canhee Hotel is. The girl paused. Aren't you from the Blue Water Gang? How come you don't know where it is? I just joined. Is there a problem? Lin Yi shrugged. Oh. It's nothing. You drive, I'll show you the way. The girl's voice was a little disappointed, but still cold. Lin Yi started the car, and it started moving slowly. Lin Yi looked at the girl out of the corner of his eye. A tourist from out of town. But Lin Yi didn't think it was possible. How could a tourist from out of town be so bold as to stop a hitchhike on the street? How dare he hitchhike, especially after knowing he was a member of the Blue Water Gang? Wasn't she afraid of death? With that in mind, Lin Yi started to get curious about the girl's identity. Had he seen her before? If he could take off her sunglasses, he might be able to remember. Self-guided tour. The girl's answer surprised Lin Yi. Self-guided tour. Self-guided tour. You know about the Blue Water Gang? Lin Yi retorted. The girl was obviously lying. Of course I'm interested, I admire the strong. The cool chick tried her best to make her smile more charming and moving, but the forced smile on her cool face was almost the same as a sneer. Lin Yi was speechless. There was no way to lie like that, was there? But he still found it funny. Admire the strong. So you're here waiting for a hitchhike in front of the Blue Water Gang? Yeah, didn't I meet you? The cool chick smiled. Can you tell me about your gang? I want to know. Sorry, I just joined. Sorry to disappoint you. Lin Yi was getting more and more curious about the girl. She didn't even know how to lie, so what did she do? Then you should know who the leader of your gang is, right? Is it Charlton? I heard it's him. The girl asked. Probably. Lin Yi had done some research on the Blue Water Gang, and that seemed to be the leader's name. Then do you know where he is? The girl ignored Lin Yi's probably. Is he in this repair shop? Or Blue Castle? In the repair factory. Lin Yi answered offhandedly. This was the information he'd gotten from the taxi driver. I see. Then do you guys see him? Which building does he usually work in? The cool girl continued to ask curiously. That I don't know. Lin Yi wasn't really a member of the Blue Water Gang, so how would he know that much? Why don't you know anything? The girl was a little angry. Then can you take me to him? Why do you want to see him? Lin Yi felt that this girl was a little strange, but the question made Lin Yi frown. There was a black SUV following him from afar. He'd been too focused on talking to the girl, and didn't even know where the hotel was. He'd been driving aimlessly, and the car was still following them from afar. He wouldn't believe it if someone told him that he wasn't following them. The Blue Water Gang. Lin Yi frowned as he thought back to his previous actions. There wasn't anything suspicious about it, and he hadn't even revealed his intentions. He didn't even have a lot of cash on him, so why would someone from the Blue Water be following him? What made Lin Yi curious was that the SUV had followed him from behind, and not from the Blue Water's repair shop. Lin Yi had looked behind him when he left the shop to make sure no one was following him. Could it be someone who was following the girl? With that thought, Lin Yi felt that it was possible. It was probably after the cool girl was picked up that the MPV behind them caught up. Chapter 325. 10 years later, I worship him. The cool girl wanted to act coquettishly, but there was no coquettish expression on her cool little face. Needless to say, it was very strange. Worship him. Lin Yi curled his lips. But I'm sorry, I really don't know him. But you don't look like you worship him, do you? You're a girl, and you're saying you worship the leader of the Blue Water Gang. Do you think you can believe that? The girl's expression froze, but it didn't show on her face. Of course. What else do you think? Nothing. Lin Yi humphed. That Mitsubishi SUV behind us has been following us for a long time. Do you know it? Mitsubishi SUV. The cool chick was slightly taken aback. She turned her head to look behind her, but when she turned back, there was an angry expression on her face. It disappeared in a flash, and she returned to normal. I don't know him. You don't know it? Alright, we'll lose it then. Lin Yi sped up abruptly, and the old Santana roared as it shot out like a wild horse, pulling a good distance away from the Mitsubishi SUV. Lin Yi then turned to the smaller roads, turning left and right, making sure that the SUV wasn't able to catch up to him yet. After a few turns, he'd left the SUV in the dust. The cool girl watched in shock as Lin Yi changed gears and sped up, controlling the car skillfully. Shock flashed across her face. How's your driving skills so good? You have a lot of questions. You've been asking this and that ever since you got in the car. What are you trying to do? Lin Yi didn't have the patience to waste any more time with the girl. He'd wanted to give her a ride since she was an Asian, but he didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble. Asking random questions meant that she wasn't just here for a vacation, and there was a car tailing them. He didn't want to interact with a girl like that for long. Who are you? You're not a member of the Blue Water Gang. The girl finally realized that something was wrong. She'd thought that Lin Yi was a member of the Blue Water Gang based on his attire and the fact that he'd driven from the HQ. But now it seemed that Lin Yi didn't know the road at all, and was just driving randomly. He'd managed to shake off the SUV, but that was only because of his driving skills. The reason why the girl felt that something was wrong was because Lin Yi had driven into a dead end. There was a landfill in front of them, and there was no other way to go. There were dilapidated houses on both sides of the road, obviously uninhabited. This place was probably the city's garbage dump. Lin Yi might have been panicking, but as a Blue Water Gang member who was familiar with the roads, there was no way he'd drive into a dead end like this. Plus, this road wasn't a dead end right away. There were a few more crossroads, but Lin Yi didn't turn and drove straight ahead, evidently not knowing that there was no road ahead. Connecting the dots between Lin Yi's claim that he didn't know the Kanhee Hotel, the girl finally felt that something was wrong. Nope. Lin Yi admitted honestly. I was just going to buy a car, they gave me the hat. The girl was speechless. She frowned, feeling a little depressed and saddened. Was she really a flower in a greenhouse, unable to stand up for herself? She'd gotten hurt the first time she went on a mission, and it hadn't been easy for her to recover. The second time she went on a mission, her family sent someone to follow her from afar. But that wasn't all. The worst part was that she'd misjudged the situation and gotten into the car of someone who wasn't a member of the Blue Water Gang, and even talked so much with him. He was starting to suspect that his mission wasn't going to be a smooth one. The girl's hand shook at the thought, and a sharp dagger appeared in her hand. She swung it lightly, aiming for Lin Yi's chest. Slap! Lin Yi grabbed the girl's hand. You! The girl hadn't expected him to grab her hand. She wasn't experienced in society, but her skills were top-notch. Otherwise, her family wouldn't have sent her out on a mission alone. She was confident in her skills. She'd made her move when Lin Yi was defenseless, and if she wasn't mistaken, Lin Yi was trying to figure out how to turn the car around. But Lin Yi had caught her hand while she was distracted. The girl's heart skipped a beat. She wanted to pull her hand back, but found that Lin Yi's hand was like a crab's clamp, holding her hand in place. "You! Let go of me!" The girl didn't just stand there. She clenched her other hand into a fist and punched at Lin Yi's face. Lin Yi frowned and dodged to the side. "Didn't you go read up on Mr. Donggua's story after you got back? Looks like I told you for nothing last time, you didn't listen to me." The girl froze, forgetting about her attack on Lin Yi. A look of disbelief appeared on her face. You're the one who molested me last time. I'm your savior." Lin Yi corrected. "I saved your life, and you tried to kill me. That's a classic case of biting the hand that feeds you. Today, I was kind enough to give you a ride, and I even answered a bunch of your questions for free, and you tried to kill me again." A wronged look appeared on Chi-Chi's face. "I was afraid that you'd ruin my plans, that's why I wanted to kill you. And last time, if you hadn't touched my body, why would I have killed you?" Lin Yi had been observing the girl on the way, trying to remember where he'd seen her before. He just couldn't be sure. But when the girl struck at the end, Lin Yi remembered. This girl was the assassin he'd seen in front of the pharmacy back in Songshan, the one who'd lost a lot of blood. "You what?" Lin Yi frowned. "I'll count to 3 and get out of the car. Don't ever show up in front of me again, you little bitch, or I won't go easy on you." Lin Yi had to admit that Chi-Chi was very pretty, but having a girl who wanted to kill him every day beside him wasn't something Lin Yi wanted. He'd always be able to sense her before she made a move, and the jade could warn him in advance. Young Chi-Chi felt wronged as she looked at Lin Yi's fierce face. "Fine, I'll get out. Revenge is a dish best served cold. I can't beat you now, but I'll come for you in 10 years. Chapter 326. Chapter 326, Sorry. Chi-Chi glared at Lin Yi before getting out of the car. Lin Yi stepped on the gas and the car sped away, and Chi-Chi realized that she was standing in front of the junkyard. There wasn't a single person here, nor were there any taxis. How was she supposed to get back? Chi-Chi wanted to cry as she yelled at Lin Yi's car. "Lin Yi, I hate you. Just you wait." Lin Yi's car answered with a puff of black smoke. Chi-Chi helplessly took out her phone and dialed a number. "Grandpa Tombstone. Did you follow me?" "No." "Just admit it." "I'm at the junkyard, I'm lost, come get me." "Alright, I'll be waiting." Lin Yi was driving out of the alleyway when the Mitsubishi SUV drove past him. Lin Yi frowned. It seemed that this car had something to do with the girl. After asking around for directions, Lin Yi got back to the hotel he was staying at. It was pretty easy to find the way. Lin Yi planned to make his move at night, so he didn't have much to do during the day. He parked the car in the hotel's parking lot, putting the blue baseball cap York gave him on the driver's seat to prevent car thieves or unnecessary trouble before entering the hotel. Lin Yi did this because he'd seen a lot of cars like this on the road. It must be some sort of secret signal for the Blue Water Gang. Putting a blue baseball cap in the car would keep thieves away. Lin Yi went back to his hotel room and took a nap. He was going to make his move at night, forcefully taking Xie Jinbiao out and back to China. At the same time, Chi-Chi was sitting next to an old man in one of the rooms of Canhe Hotel, a little troubled. Her cool face was red with anger. "Grandpa Tombstone, that Lin Yi is a bastard. I'm going to kill him." How dare he leave me in the junkyard? You said that person's name is Lin Yi. Mu Bei paused at the name. Yeah. What, you've heard of this name before, Grandpa Tombstone? Chi-Chi asked curiously. Nothing. Tombstone shook his head. Let's not go for tonight's operation. I'll talk to the patriarch and cancel it. No, I must kill that Charlandon. Chi-Chi shook her head stubbornly. I have to prove to my father that I'm a qualified assassin. All right then, Miss Yang, please be careful. Tombstone said helplessly, however, I will stay outside the repair factory. If there is any situation, call me at any time. Got it. There was a hint of unwillingness on Chi-Chi's cool face. She didn't want Mubei to follow her, but there was nothing she could do. Grandpa Mubei must have been sent by her mother. That night, Lin Yi made his move. Lin Yi parked his car not far from the repair factory he'd been to earlier in the day and put on his blue baseball cap, striding into the factory. The Blue Water member guarding the door only raised his head slightly to look at Lin Yi, but didn't stop him. He went back to his video game. The people who came to the repair factory at night were all Blue Water members. Normal people wouldn't come to a place like this at night, so the guard didn't think that Lin Yi would come looking for trouble alone. Lin Yi kept his head down with the blue baseball cap on, so no one noticed him. There were at least 300 people dressed like Lin Yi in the factory, all busy with their own things. Lin Yi wasn't in a rush to find out where Jinbiao was being held. He walked around the factory a couple of times, memorizing the layout of the place. You guys, go check out Mr. Wyhan's casinos. Someone's causing trouble there. Bring him back and have his family and friends prepare $50,000 to pay for his ransom. A coarse voice called out to a few Blue Water members. Yes. After these members received the order, they got into a few cars and sped away. The man who'd been cursing earlier was about to leave when a knife appeared on his neck. Don't scream, or I'll kill you. Lin Yi was actually looking for a Blue Water leader as he walked around the factory. Normal gang members wouldn't be able to find out where Jinbiao was being held. After all, everyone was busy with their own business. Kidnapping Jinbiao to extort money from Guangbo wasn't a big deal. At least, the Blue Water gang did this sort of thing quite often. Even their leader, Charlton, didn't know about it. Charlton only looked at the final profits of the gang. As for how, that was handled by the mid-level leaders. So, he couldn't just grab a random person to find out where Jinbiao was being held. That was why Lin Yi hadn't made a move yet, choosing a target instead. Lin Yi wanted to hit the target in one go, and not blindly ask a bunch of people. That would only alert the enemy. But finally, Lin Yi ran into the leader who'd ordered his men to capture Jinbiao. Lin Yi was delighted. The person he'd been looking for was finally here. What? What do you want? The leader was just about to cry for help when he heard Lin Yi's voice. The knife on his neck was real and cold, and he couldn't guarantee that the guy behind him wouldn't stab him to death. Where are the people you've captured? Lin Yi asked. Cut the bullshit and answer me. Don't blame me if you lie. Who? Who are you looking for? Tell me the name, and I'll call my men to release them. The leader said carefully. Humph. Lin Yi snorted coldly, cutting the knife into the leader's neck. Blood gushed out. I told you to cut the bullshit and answer me. Are you deaf? Or do you want to die now? I don't mind killing you and asking someone else. Don't, I'll talk. Originally, the leader wanted to play a trick and find out who Lin Yi was looking for. Then, he'd let his men bring the person out as a hostage to force Lin Yi to give in. But obviously, Lin Yi wasn't even interested in talking. On the count of 3, 2. Lin Yi increased the strength of the knife in his hand. In the basement of the building in front. Don't kill me. I've already said. The leader was scared. It's in the building in front. Let me go, 1. Lin Yi said the last number. Sorry, I didn't stop. Chapter 327. Chapter 327. A thief. Lin Yi took off the leader's baseball cap and shoved the body under a car that hadn't been driven in a while. No one would be able to find him for a while, probably only when his body rotted and started to smell. Of course, Lin Yi didn't believe the leader's words completely. Who knew if he had ulterior motives? Lin Yi didn't go to the building the leader was talking about right away. What if it was a trap? Lin Yi wasn't that careless. Lin Yi walked around the building and crouched down quietly at the door like a normal Blue Water member. A Blue Water member walked out after a while, and Lin Yi followed him, putting a knife to his neck after he'd walked for a while. But this time, the member spoke up before Lin Yi could say anything. Bro, don't kill me. I just wanted to sneak in to see if I could get some loot, but I went into the wrong place. I didn't do anything, I didn't steal anything. You can search me if you don't believe me, I really didn't steal anything. Please, let me go. Lin Yi paused, speechless. This guy had snuck in just like him. And from what he said, he seemed to be a thief who wanted to fish in troubled waters. Where did you get that hat? Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I stole it. The thief didn't try to hide anything. I saw someone leave it in the car, but the window wasn't closed, so I stole it. I heard this was where the Blue Water made their money, so I came to try my luck. Bro, it's really my first time here. Oh. Then what did you see when you went in? Lin Yi asked. I didn't see anything, really. I won't tell anyone. The thief was on the verge of tears. Tell me the truth. What did you see? Lin Yi asked helplessly. He didn't expect this thief to misunderstand him and think that he wanted him to keep it a secret. Big brother, you're also a sensible person. You know that's where you keep the hostages. Although I saw it, I won't tell anyone. Really, don't worry. I'll keep it to myself. The thief said honestly, I'm not a professional. I won't report you. Lin Yi listened to the thief's words and knew that he misunderstood, but Lin Yi didn't explain. Now that he had confirmed that this building was really a place to hold the hostages, it was fine. No one noticed you after you went in. Don't tell me there aren't any of our people inside. Lin Yi asked. No, there's no one from you inside, except for the hostages behind the iron bars. The thief thought that Lin Yi was just asking a routine question, so he answered truthfully. He didn't have time to think about why Lin Yi was asking these questions. He was already sweating profusely. If I let you go just like that, I'll have to bear the risk if the higher-ups ask. Lin Yi didn't want to kill the thief anymore, it'd be more troublesome to deal with the corpse. He might as well let the thief go. But he had to make sure that he didn't get suspicious if he let the thief go too smoothly. Big brother. The thief took out a stack of money from his pocket. This is my earnings for the day. You can use it to buy some cigarettes, okay, you know your place. Now scram. Lin Yi took the money and stuffed it into his pocket in satisfaction, sheathing the knife. The thief ran off gratefully, not even looking back as he left the place. Thinking about it, he didn't dare to stay any longer and would probably run out of the repair factory. Lin Yi made sure that there weren't any Blue Water members in the building from the thief's mouth, and so he swaggered in. The first floor was a big hall, but there was nothing there. The second floor was sealed off, evidently used as a warehouse. Lin Yi went down to the basement and saw rows upon rows of prison-like cells. Some had people sitting in them, some didn't, but none of them raised their heads to look at Lin Yi as he walked past. All of them looked dejected and dispirited. They were probably hostages that the Blue Water Gang had come up with all sorts of excuses, waiting for their families and friends to come with money to redeem them. Still, the Blue Water Gang was pretty cocky, running a blackmail business like this in broad daylight. It seemed that the security here had fallen to a certain level. Xie Jinbiao. Lin Yi couldn't be bothered to look for them one by one, so he called out the name. Here, here. One of the men in the cell stood up excitedly, waving at Lin Yi as he walked to the edge of the cell. Lin Yi nodded and quickly walked over. The other hostages were evidently used to this, and didn't even raise their heads. Whoever brought the money would be called out and released, while the others wouldn't be able to get out no matter what. They didn't seem to care about Lin Yi's arrival at all. You're Xie Jinbiao. Lin Yi looked at Jinbiao, noticing that he was very different from the picture Guangbue had given him. In the picture Guangbue had given him, Jinbiao was tall and strong, but this Xie Jinbiao in front of him looked like a sickly person, skinny as a monkey. But upon closer inspection, he could tell that it was the same person. Yes, that's me. Did my dad transfer the money? Jinbiao was a little excited. He'd thought that he was dead for sure, but his father had found a way. Xie Jinbiao roughly knew how much money his family had, but the debt this time was too much. Xie Jinbiao estimated that even if his father borrowed money, he wouldn't be able to borrow so much money, so he was already a little desperate. Lin Yi unlocked the door with a metal wire and let Jinbiao out. Come with me. Jinbiao followed Lin Yi carefully. He was so excited that he didn't even see Lin Yi open the door with the metal wire, thinking that Lin Yi was a real member of the Blue Water Gang. Where's my dad? Jinbiao asked again when he saw that Lin Yi wasn't talking. Where's my dad? Can I go now? Put this on and don't talk nonsense. Follow me. Lin Yi put the baseball cap he'd gotten from the gang leader on Jinbiao's head. Don't ask so many questions if you don't want to die. Chapter 328. Chapter 328. Her again, I'm the one who's bringing you back. Lin Yi knew that if he didn't explain himself, the kid wouldn't follow him. Your old man doesn't have that much money, so stop asking questions if you don't want to die. Ah. You're my dad's man. Jinbiao blinked in surprise. Since when did my dad have such a powerful man? That's amazing. Lin Yi rolled his eyes. Why was this Jinbiao just as stupid as his old man? He snorted. I wouldn't even take your old man in as my man. Ah. Jinbiao finally realized that this person wasn't his father's man, but an expert that his father had hired to save him. Jinbiao's attitude turned respectful. I'll listen to you, big brother. Lin Yi was amused. This kid was a typical rich second generation. He was so cocky when he thought he was his father's man, but now that he knew he wasn't, he was trying to suck up to him. But Lin Yi couldn't be bothered with him. Bringing him back to the country was the same as completing his mission, and getting his father's shares in exchange would be considered a success. It was a simple mission, not challenging at all. Lin Yi shook his head and walked with Jinbiao to the door of the repair factory. But they hadn't gone far when they heard a commotion. Catch him. Don't let him get away. Kill him. Bang. Bang. A few gunshots rang out, followed by the screams of a man and a woman. It was obvious that both sides were injured. Lin Yi frowned. Did someone else invade this place besides him? The thief must have left long ago, so it couldn't be the thief they were trying to catch. And the thief couldn't have a gun on him. It was quite a busy night for 3 groups of people to come to this small repair factory. Ah! Big brother, what do we do? Did they find us? What should we do? They all have guns. Xie Jinbiao also heard the shout and was so scared that he almost fell to the ground. Shut up. They didn't find us, but someone else. Lin Yi glared at the fool and said unhappily, just follow me. Don't talk too much and don't look around. Oh. I know. Xie Jinbiao hurriedly nodded and said, Big brother, will you protect me? If you keep blabbering like this and expose yourself, I'll run away on my own. You can stay here and die. Lin Yi snorted coldly and continued walking forward, ignoring Xie Jinbiao. Jinbiao still wanted to say something, but he was frightened by Lin Yi's cold words and didn't dare to speak. He carefully followed behind Lin Yi. The more chaotic it got, the better it was for Lin Yi. Everyone was focused on the intruder, and no one paid attention to Lin Yi and Xie Jinbiao, who were obviously Blue Water members. And so, Lin Yi calmly led Jinbiao towards the door. As expected, no one stopped them. Jinbiao's heart was in his throat. He wasn't as calm as Lin Yi, sweating profusely. These were real weapons, killing people without blinking an eye. How could he not be afraid? Lin Yi frowned abruptly. The sounds were getting nearer and nearer, and it seemed that the intruder was running towards them. Lin Yi was speechless. He turned to Jinbiao. Hurry, they're coming. Oh. Jinbiao nodded and quickened his pace with Lin Yi. Bang! A gunshot rang out, followed by a scream of pain. It was a woman's voice. The two brothers in front, hurry up and stop that chick in front. A loud voice rang out from behind Lin Yi. Lin Yi had no choice but to stop his footsteps. If he didn't turn back now, the people behind him would probably open fire. If he was alone, he was confident that he'd be able to dodge the bullets behind him and escape. But there was a burden beside him. He could leave, but Jinbiao couldn't. Although Lin Yi had threatened him that he'd leave him behind, Lin Yi couldn't just leave him like that. Leaving him here would mean giving up on Guangbo's shares. Don't talk, follow me. Lin Yi told Jinbiao before turning around to see a figure in black lying not far from him. It was the intruder who'd been shot, but he didn't expect it to be a woman. Lin Yi pretended that he was going to capture the intruder as he walked to the side of the black figure. Hey, brother, what do you think of this chick? The leader who chased after them called out to Lin Yi with a lewd look. Lin Yi squatted down, but he was stunned. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. Because the girl on the ground was the cool chick he met during the day. Lin Yi didn't know what to say. This chick repeatedly appeared in front of him and brought trouble to him. She even bit the hand that fed her. To tell the truth, Lin Yi really wanted to leave her here, but she was an Asian after all, and it could be said that they were fated to meet twice in a blue city like this. It was quite a rare encounter. Lin Yi wasn't a person who liked to meddle in other people's business. In fact, Lin Yi was a person who didn't care if it was none of his business. But this chick was someone he knew, and they were from the same sect. If he ignored her and left her here, he was afraid that she would be in danger. Just looking at the gleaming eyes of the pursuers was enough to tell how dangerous this chick was. It's my bad luck to run into you. Lin Yi took a deep breath and snatched the gun from the chick's hand. He aimed at the leader of the pursuers and fired. The bullet went straight in between the eyebrows, and the leader fell to the ground without a doubt. Lin Yi tucked the chick under his armpit with one hand and grabbed Jinbiao by the collar with the other, running towards the factory. In actuality, Lin Yi was just playing with the timing, catching the Blue Water pursuers off guard and causing them to suffer a loss. Lin Yi had pretended to be a member of the Blue Water to help the pursuers stop the chick, so the pursuers naturally treated Lin Yi as one of their own. They were no longer nervous. To them, the chick's capture was a foregone conclusion. So when they saw Lin Yi crouch down, the pursuers naturally lowered their guns. There was no point in raising them. It was a subconscious action. Chapter 329. How could Lin Yi endure this? When the leader fell, the people next to him didn't even have the time to react to how this happened and what was going on. He was their brother, but why had he turned on them and killed their leader with one shot? Who could tell them what was going on? While they were still in a daze, not knowing what to do, Lin Yi grabbed the girl under his arm and Jin Biao and ran away. By the time they realized what was going on, Lin Yi was already out of the repair shop and back at the alley where he'd parked his car. He opened the car door and tossed the girl in the back seat, letting Jin Biao sit in the front passenger seat. Jin Biao's legs went limp with fright. He knew that killing and robbing was a common thing in Blue Town, but that was just hearsay, not something he'd personally experienced. But this time, it was a real gunfight right next to him. If it weren't for Lin Yi's quick reflexes, Jin Biao would have been a dead man by now. Get in the car, what are you waiting for? I'm leaving if you don't. Lin Yi was getting impatient when he saw Jin Biao standing by the car door. Bro, my legs are numb. Can you help me? Jin Biao said carefully, looking like he was on the verge of tears. He didn't want to mess with Lin Yi anymore. The guy was a ruthless one. Not only had he killed a Blue Water leader with one shot, but he'd even managed to escape with an injured girl and himself in the middle of the chaos. Was that something anyone could do? Lin Yi walked over quickly and kicked Jin Biao into the car. He closed the door and went back to the driver's seat, starting up the car and driving away. Not long after Lin Yi left, the Blue Waters caravan moved out. Lin Yi had parked his car in the parking lot of the hotel he was staying at. Young Chi-Chi had woken up by now. She'd been bleeding non-stop after getting shot in the shoulder, but she'd endured the pain and made her way to the door. Unfortunately for her, the bullet had hit her leg once more, and she'd fallen to the ground the moment she'd been shot. She'd lost a lot of blood before, and the fall had knocked her out, but young Chi-Chi's willpower was much stronger than a normal person's. She didn't pass out completely even after losing so much blood. In fact, she was already awake when Lin Yi picked her up, but her emotions were a little complicated. He had saved her once again. She owed him too much. Could he still kill him? And so, Chi-Chi could only pretend that she wasn't awake. Take my room card and go upstairs. Don't let anyone see anything. Lin Yi handed the room card to Jin Biao. I don't care if you die if someone sees through you. Ah. All right. Jin Biao didn't want to go upstairs himself, but he knew that there was no point in wasting his time. Lin Yi wouldn't care about him, and he didn't know what that female assassin had to do with Lin Yi. Since Lin Yi wasn't going to say anything, Jin Biao didn't dare pry. He took the room card and started walking towards the hotel, trembling. Wait, take off your hat. Lin Yi pointed at the blue baseball cap on Jin Biao's head. If he were to put on this hat now, he'd definitely attract the waitress's attention. If the Blue Water really did come here to search, the waitress's mouth might slip, and that'd be bad for them. Yes. Yes. Jin Biao quickly took his hat off, evidently thinking of that as well. He felt a wave of fear. It seemed that he wasn't as cautious as Lin Yi. Go up yourself, go in through the back door. Try not to let anyone see you. Lin Yi said faintly. The Blue Water wouldn't know that Jin Biao had been rescued at this point. All their attention was on the female assassin and the traitor, but it was better to be safe than sorry. I understand, I'll be careful. Jin Biao's legs had regained some feeling as well. It was still a little soft, but he didn't dare stay. He was afraid that Lin Yi would really abandon him if he didn't listen to him, and leave him here to die. Lin Yi only turned around after Jin Biao entered the hotel. You're not dead, are you? Tell me where you're staying if you're not. Can he hotel? Chi-Chi's pale face squeezed out a hint of gratitude. Thank you, no need, just don't kill me next time. Lin Yi didn't care at all for the girl's gratitude. Can you turn on the reading light in the car? I want to take the bullet out first. Chi-Chi knew that she'd attract unwanted attention if she went back to the hotel like this. She wanted to take the bullet out first, stop the bleeding, and put on some clothes to cover her body. Wouldn't that attract unwanted attention? Lin Yi was starting to curse. Which master taught you? Why aren't you dead yet, being an assassin? Chi-Chi's face was a little red as she glared at Lin Yi. Don't talk about my master like that. This is only my second mission. My mom said that people grow up through failure. Second time. Lin Yi was speechless. So that was your first time in Songshan? Yeah. Chi-Chi humphed softly and nodded. You. How am I supposed to endure this? Lin Yi was going crazy. I finally know why you're still alive. It's because you met me twice, or you'd be dead already. He had only carried out 2 missions in total and was injured twice. Was there such a stupid assassin? Was there? Lin Yi was speechless. This girl was too strong. She looked cool, but she was a weakling. It's not that bad, just a little unlucky. Chi-Chi lowered her head, embarrassed. I think I'm even more unlucky than you are. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. I really don't know who led you out on a mission. Your social experience is basically 0. Everyone has a time when they're young. How can they be strong without experience? Chi-Chi retorted coolly. Alright, I'm unlucky. Where did the bullet hit you? I'll get it for you. Lin Yi didn't dare turn on the reading light that would attract curious people. Right shoulder and left calf. Chi-Chi whispered.